Welcome to the second day of We Don't Have Time broadcast from Climate Week in New York. My name is Katarina Rolfsdotter Jansson. I'm one of the program hosts for We Don't Have Time, and I'm coming to you from our studio in Stockholm. We're going to kick off this second day of broadcast with a keynote from the CEO and founder, Ingmar Rentzhog. Ingmar, you're going to talk about what happened yesterday in New York, right?
I will, but I will also start by talking about what didn't happen, but what we hope will happen in the future.
You have full attention.
Thank you. And I think every one of you that tune in here have probably seen this old man at the UN General Assembly yesterday. He had a very strange speech. I will not start by replaying that. I will instead start by replaying another speech in the UN General Assembly. So let's have a watch what we will love to hear next Climate Week and the opening of the UN General Assembly.
Okay. Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about extinction. And let me tell you, and you'd kind of think this would be obvious, going extinct is a bad thing. And driving yourselves extinct? In 70 million years, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster, and yet every year governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now. Think of all the other things you could do with that money. Around the world, people are living in poverty. Don't you think helping them would make more sense than, I don't know, paying for the demise of your entire species? Let me be real for a second. You've got a huge opportunity right now. As you rebuild your economies and bounce back from this pandemic, this is humanity's big chance. So here's my wild idea. Don't choose extinction. Save your species before it's too late. It's time for you humans to stop making excuses and start making changes. Thank you.
This is part of a campaign that UNDP created 5 years ago. We know time we were one of the partners. And it has actually been seen by 2 billion people, even showed on Chinese state TV. So, I mean, it's not only old men that are getting the views, it's also the old dinosaurs. And there are some similarities, because we're now going to see another speech from yesterday. If you have missed it, I have a short snippet, because I think it's important to show this. It's important to call out lies. And we're going to hear the President of the United States speaking some of the argument that we in the climate movement thought were extinct since a really long time is suddenly back on the central stage. Let's see what he said yesterday.
Climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion. Climate change, no matter what happens, you're involved in that. No more global warming, no more global cooling. All of these predictions made by the United Nations and many others, often for bad reasons, were wrong. They were made by stupid people that have cost their countries fortunes and given those same countries no chance for success. If you don't get away from this green scam, your country is going to fail. And I'm really good at predicting things, you know. They actually said during the campaign, they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything. And I'm telling you that if you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the President of the United States, but I worry about Europe.
I mean, we're not really surprised, but I'm actually quite surprised. Not because it's obviously wrong. Everyone that are not living under a rock knows that climate are changing and that we humans are very much part of the cause. That was actually stated just, I think it was earlier this week. It was a new report from the United States Academy of Science confirming that, and everyone knows it. It's not a news. And I became actually very upset when I saw this speech. And it was not about that he is saying it. It's about that he's lying. He knows that climate change is happening. He knows what's happening. I mean, the United States president have all the information, and he understands it. And we can see it in the way he acts. This is bullshit. He is the con. It's time to call it out. This is the Greenland. We're talking about Greenland. The United States want to buy Greenland, even invade an allied country, or neighbor country here in Sweden, Denmark. They want to invade that country to grab that land because it's going to be worth billions when the ice are melting because of climate change. So he's lying because he's acting in a way he knows very well that the climate are changing. And it's us causing it. He just thinks that he can win the people's opinion and telling a lot of disinformation. And here's the thing, not many people believes what Donald Trump are saying, but it's confusing them. That's the point. When you tell a lot of shit, that creates an information where people start disbelieve the truth and reality, and you can twist it your way. So why is this reality? What's the motive? The motive is money. Money, money, money. It's corruption we're talking about here. And I have an example. I actually have evidence. This is a dinner before the election last year. Donald Trump invited the oil executives. And he said to them, give me $1 billion. I will win the US election and I will cancel the science and everything so that you can sell unlimited oil. And that's what he's doing. That is what he's delivering. He's paid to have that speech in the United States. He is a con man. And we need to call that out. I can't say this if I'm in Manhattan, New York, but I can say it because I'm in Europe, in Sweden, in European Union. And we are still a democracy and we're still free. And how is this playing out in the United States? I will tell you with some examples. One action taken by the Trump administration this year is to declare fossil fuel safe and healthy, clean coal. Nothing to worry about. And they're also funneling the money by cancelling the subsidies to solar and making the US consumer pay their electricity bill to sponsor coal power plants that are unprofitable to stay online. We're talking about $10 billion up to 2030. It's your money if you live in the United States. That's crazy. And they're also killing the competition because that's they're really scared of. So you try to kill wind farms that are almost completely built. I mean, how idiotic is it that? It's one thing to not build new ones, but to destroy almost completely the infrastructure, it's insane. You have a motive to do that. And for somehow, they're convincing people, and that's what's working, and we need to call that out, that they are the underdog. That Donald Trump is defending the people of America. Freedom. Seriously. These are the people he's defending. These are the elite. We need to call that out because they try to convince that people like me and other climate activists and other people active in the climate movement are the elite. If you Google my name, you will find something shit like this. Greta Thunberg exposes as creation of powerful Marxists, Soros back then goes Al Gore and more. It's bullshit. It's lies. They try to tell people that we have some kind of elite that can control the world. If that were true, we will be saving the climate. It's not true. And here is what they talked about on Russia state TV 5 years ago. Talk about me. This is absurd. It's a play to get us to not act. And the real truth is that we are not elite, but we are the people. More than 80%. In fact, a new study, 89% says that globally, 89% of the people want stronger climate action from their leaders. We are not elite, but we are the people, and we need to stop staying silent, because right now we are worked against. They try to silence this, and they try to make us feel alone so that we don't think our neighbors also agree with us. We need to step up, stop being the silent majority. And what's happening here, and what's happening very, very long time, there is some special interest, making a lot of money from fossil fuel, creating a lot of power as well. They have for many, many years denied climate change, and you just saw it. But people don't believe that anymore. So, I mean, people are also laughing about that speech from yesterday. So they have moved on, tried to delay change. That is not really working either, because change are happening. People are not buying fossil fuel-powered cars when you have better electric cars that are not consuming oil. So what is happening now? They start to cancel science itself. And we actually have a scientist that we're going to talk here that have moved from US to still do the work. And how are they doing this? They are seeing science as an enemy. How absurd is that? We have heard that before. And here is another short quote, not from the President of the United States, but from the Vice President. Let's hear him out.
Have to honestly and aggressively attack the universities in this country. Ladies and gentlemen, the universities do not pursue knowledge and truth. They pursue deceit and lies, and it's time to be honest about that fact. And there is a wisdom in what Richard Nixon said. He said, and I quote, "The professors are the enemy."
And as we know, it's not just talk. Here are some examples of what they try to do. This is the observatory in United States, Hawaii, that are measuring carbon dioxide every single day. We have a data series since the 1960s. And the level is record high, so this is really alarming. So what are the new US administration doing about it? They're trying to kill the land lease and shut down that observatory. And this is just one example. A couple of weeks ago, the White House sent a memo to NASA and asked them to turn off, burn up, and shut down 2 of the most advanced climate satellites. And it was not the cost, it's the data it produced that's dangerous. Shut it down, burn it up. And this is spreading. The anti-science movements are also here in Europe. In Germany, one of the largest party, AfD, they want to tear down and destroy all wind powers because they think they're ugly. Why is this happening? The reason for it is that they are losing. And they are desperate. We need to understand that. And this is an example. In Europe, last year, more than wind and solar went past fossil fuel energy and electricity production. So they are on the losing side. In US, 96% of all new electric power were fossil-free. And we have the solution scaling exponentially, electric vehicle, battery, solar, etc., etc. But exponential growth are very hard to understand for us humans. We have a better example to see how fast we are moving in time. In 2004, it took the world 1 year to build 1 gigawatt of solar power. In 2010, it took a month. In 2015, it took just over a week. In 2023, it took a day. And last year, it took 50 minutes. This is the speed of change that if you're invested in fossil fuel and don't want to change, you're really scared of. And you can see it here. It took 68 years to build 1 terawatt globally. And after that, it took 2 years. Imagine, this is fantastic. This is the scam, if you would like to quote the President of the United States. It's not a scam, it's the future. And the future are also decreasing the emission. We're seeing it going down. In Europe, 8% 2023. Even in China, it starts to go down now. It's not going down fast enough. According to science, we need to cut the emission in half, and we are kind of flattening out here. That's not good enough. But here's the thing, and here's the main message behind this Make Science Great Again. If we remove the resistance, the people trying to stop and delay and cancel, this is not only possible, this will happen. I'm 100% sure. But it will not happen by itself. We need to wake the silent majority to understand why science are under attack, and that we're not losing, we're winning, but we need to break through. Otherwise, we will not win in that. And that's where we need media. And we don't have time. We are the world's largest media platform for climate action today. In 2018, we took this photo and we shared this person to the world. Now everyone knows about Greta Thunberg. We helped out in the beginning. We don't need to help her today because she has a very global stage. So today we need to help scientists. And scientists are not good at communicating. So there's a lot of job to do there. We need to tell the stories where science are under attack, but we also need to tell the stories where science are breaking through and helping humanity and all of us creating a better future. And we can make a difference when we mobilize. The U.S. administration, they tried to release a scientific report about climate change that it's not that bad, it's really not nothing to worry about. But people in U.S. and elsewhere and the science community were calling it out. So they have now cancelled the group behind this because that was not really making sense. It was an embarrassment. So we can win against those anti-science, but we need to mobilize. And that is what we really need to step up the game, because currently we're losing. According to Science Union of Concerned Scientists, there has been 402 attacks on science only this year. We need to set this in context and we need people to be aware of it. And we need you to help us tell the story. If you go to the webpage wedon'time.org/Make Science Great Again, you can support this campaign. You can get your own cap. I mean, it's something that if we would like to give the United States president, he's really good at selling caps, like you said. But he's not right about everything. But science is what we need. And if you want a cap that is right, you can get one by wearing a Make Science Great Again cap. And it's a perfect way to stop being silent if you're in the majority that I hope you probably are if you're watching this. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed for that presentation, Ingmar. That was very powerful. Science is indeed the backbone of everything that we need to do with climate action, right? And it's under such severe pressure. It's around the world, political forces are pushing against science. We see researchers being silenced. We see experts being silenced, and we see universities being weakened. And of course, the United States that you spoke of already, we've seen chilling effects of the attacks on science. And in Europe, well, it's not really safe here either. We see science taking the back seat as other interests like waging the war in Europe, etc., and the effects of that. has really been pushing against climate action connected to science. So we need to discuss this because we do know that there is a great majority. You pointed out the 89%, Ingmar, globally, and we need to ensure that these concerns get translated into support for science, because science is, without science, we're lost. We're flying blind, basically. So joining us here, we have, apart from Ingmar, we're so happy to have you, Marcy Rockman, visiting researcher at Linnaeus University here in Sweden. And you are an American scientist that are now currently working and residing in Sweden, on the east coast of Sweden. You're very welcome. And also joining us via the magic of Zoom, we have Maria Bergqvist. See if we can get Maria up on, yeah, there she is, with the beautiful Öresund bridge in the background between Malmö and Copenhagen. And Maria is vice president of Klimatklubben, and it's a Swedish NGO that joins a lot of people, mobilizes a lot of people in Sweden to take more climate action in different fields. So it's wonderful to have you with us also, Maria Bergqvist. So I'd like to start with a question to you, Marcy. You, as I introduced you, you're a scientist and you work in the United States, and now you're here in Sweden. So can you please tell us the story? What happened? What made you move here and start working here instead?
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here, and I appreciate the chance for this conversation. So I'm an archaeologist, and the part of climate science that I work in is the cultural heritage portion of it. And this means two things. It means both the impacts of climate change on different parts of heritage. And this is the part most people think about first, like archaeological sites eroding, historic buildings being hit by storms, and so forth. But it also means, and this is the foremost part that I work with, is how do we work with cultural heritage, the collected experience of humans through centuries and generations? How do we make that part of how we respond to climate change? How do we work with memory and place and identity and knowledge to help build a climate future? My career in doing this has actually been shaped by both Trump administrations. Under the Obama administration, I actually started with the National Park Service, and for several years I served as the lead person, the National Park Service, as their climate change lead for cultural heritage. And it turned out that I was one of the federal climate staff that was pushed out under Trump 1. I had the opportunity to stay in Washington, D.C., and I built a body of work looking at the intersections of science and policy for climate, and particularly how heritage interweaves with all of those. I built some projects with the IPCC and UNESCO, and I worked locally with a number of NGOs and nonprofits working with local stories about heritage and place and what was happening with climate. Challenge was those projects were they were sort of soft money, they were grants and so forth. And so when this most recent election happened and the inauguration started, and both climate change and cultural heritage were on the list of banned terms, all of that support evaporated. Now, where I've landed is at Linnaeus University, as you kindly described. And they have there a special program. It's the UNESCO Chair for Heritage Futures, which is it's a fascinating, unique program that's looking at heritage not as the way we often think of it as things that are past and frozen, and how do we remember and keep things as they were, but how do we shift and think about heritage and work with heritage as part of a creative element in how we create our futures. Last year, I was invited to speak at a conference that took place in Uppsala in August, and the chair invited me to come down to Kalmar as part of that trip to see how we might bring our research together. But then early this year, as all of my work started to evaporate, I had to write and say, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be able to come. And the chair replied, I'm so sorry to hear that. And then he said, what if? And it turned out shortly after that, the Swedish Research Council put out a call for proposals to bring visiting researchers from outside of Europe to Sweden, and we put in an application. And this is where I say I'm so torn. I'm heartsick and furious at all that is happening in the U.S. I am also so lucky that they said yes, because I've had the opportunity to come, and we're building some work together, bringing climate and policy and heritage futures together.
Well, thank you, Marcy. We're so lucky to have you. And of course, I need to ask you, how common is this story? I mean, do we have other scientists that also left the United States because of the development here?
That's such a good question. What I don't know, I know actually there was at least one other American in the group of grants that were given that brought me here. And the Swedish Research Council has just announced the second round, and it's additional 4 researchers, all from the U.S., who are coming to Sweden. I don't know the numbers of other scientists that are coming to Europe. I know there are programs being put forward for them. What I can say is I know how many scientists are being affected in the U.S. My particular path is unique, but there's really not a single person I know in the city of D.C. that I've worked with in climate and science and government that is not affected by this. They've lost jobs, they've lost staff, they've lost projects. There's so much uncertainty across climate change and health and international development and security. It's affecting all of those pieces. So while some of us have had the chance to come here, we're all very aware of the folks who aren't yet here and trying to maintain conversations with the folks that are there.
It must be heartbreaking. Let's turn to Maria now at Klimatklubben. Ingmar mentioned the 89% campaign that you just launched. And Maria, could you briefly tell us about what the campaign is about and what you're trying to achieve?
Most others engaged in this area, we noted the big study coming out last year from scientists at the universities of Bonn and Copenhagen and Frankfurt, I think, where 130,000 citizens globally were interviewed about a bunch of questions related to climate change, but the sort of main takeaway that really opened our eyes was the 89% figure, the very large majority of people globally who want stronger climate policies. And so we thought, this is unbelievable. It's an unbelievable number, though it has been established in other studies as well. And we thought, if this surprises us, it must be news to a majority of the people in Sweden as well. We all go about our days feeling lonely, being so concerned about the climate, the planet, and how could we, as a small NGO, encourage people to move the Overton window and look out of it and see that we're actually the big majority. We, as a community, can actually change things. And we wanted to somehow make that clear and encourage people to make connections, basically.
And how has the response been so far, Maria?
It's only been about 2 weeks, and we're a very small organization, even though we have, Instagram followers in the 40,000s and Facebook followers around the 25,000s. We're still very small compared to bigger platforms, bigger media. So I can't say that the numbers are anywhere close to what it would be if we were, say, a big corporation with a new brand to launch. But for us, the response has been amazing. Hundreds of people have bought our little stickers and pins to make themselves known to each other. And we've had lots of web visits and interactions in social media.
And taking part of this broadcast here today, of course, I guess it's free for other global organizations, other organizations in other countries to take over. I mean, to use your thought and create their own campaigns, right?
Exactly that. I mean, we don't own the number 89. We don't own this idea. We want everyone to chip in and sort of join this call for connection.
Well, thank you. It's great work, and the communications campaign is brilliant. Even if you don't understand Swedish, you can check it out on klimatklubben.se, right?
Yes, and there's also a very nice write-up about it on We Don't Have Time.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Maria. Stay with us. So, Ingmar, as we saw in your keynote, you are wary and worried about the turning of using politics, making science into politics and pushing it sort of through that ringer. So what is the bearings of this when you look at science and the threat to other scientists, not just to Marcy, but in general? So what is your take on this?
I mean, the problem and the attack, if you see it as put it that way, it really is. And it's also a culture where people are, and it's not just the Donald Trump or MAGA movement, it's much broader than that. The root problem is that the society are starting to dissolve in opinions. We don't see what's facts and what's opinion. If you present the facts, someone are saying, oh, that's just an opinion. No, it's not an opinion. Facts are facts. We can, I mean, sometimes science are coming with better facts, and we can argue about that, and we can update the fact, but we need to agree on this. And this is what we have been, I mean, mixing facts and opinions is something that haven't been in the past, in the modern times, but it has been in the past where the world is, slipping into dark ages and all that kind of shit. We don't want to go there again. And it's much more severe than just attacking climate science. I talked to one of our investors. It's a really big, he is also running a really big, one of the largest impact investment fund, not focused on climate, but focusing on things doing society better. They're investing heavily in biotech, in new drugs to cure diseases, etc. And he said that that's really hard now to fund because U.S. are, mixing everything up, and the health department and how you approve new drug license, etc., are not working. So people don't want to invest. This means that the cure for many of the diseases that research are getting cancelled because it's not getting funded. I don't think the White House really wants to do that, but they just see everything in their way of, that can call them out, that this is fact and not opinion. They don't see them as the enemy that we heard. And it's affecting everything. So we really need to step up and get people aware that if we want to live in a world based on facts, based on progress, and based on respect for each other, we must defend that. Otherwise, we will not have it anymore, and we will lose democracy, we will lose climate, we will lose the future we want to live in. And this is playing out really fast. But I must also say, as we've seen here, 89% don't want that, right? We just need to wake this majority up.
The silent majority.
Yes, and I understand that in the United States today, it's risky to raise your voice. But if you live in a democracy, like here in Europe, it's a responsibility to raise the voice, because we are still free, and if we don't use our freedom, we will not be free as much anymore.
Thank you, Imre. What you're describing is basically an erosion of trust, even in when it comes to the bio industry and pharmaceuticals. So that threatens other aspects that you might not realize, right?
Yeah, it's very much an erosion of trust. And I mean, some people don't want us to trust anything, because if we can't trust anything, we are really easy to control. That's the propaganda slide I had there. It's not about selling their truth. It's about selling that you should stop believing and don't understand what is truth. So you give up on everything, and someone can just decide about your future, and you will not be a problem. So I will also like to add something, and that is, science has also been misused in society. It's not only coming from the far right. It's also a far left thing where science has been kind of, science is the truth. and they have some kind of report, and they say that you're stupid if you don't agree with that. That's not a scientific way. A scientific approach is to lay out the facts and have an honest discussion about the facts. And if you have better facts, you develop and evolve your argument, your findings, and you find a common ground. So we must stop canceling each other from left or right, doesn't matter. And we need to start talking with each other, and we need to respect people with different views. It's super important, but we need to do it based on reality. We can't imagine and say that reality is just my opinion. So if you don't agree on my opinion, that doesn't work.
Thank you, Ingmar. Turning now to Marcy, from your point of view, what happens when political leaders and also some media really sort of disregard science and just act as if it doesn't matter at all? What are the implications from your point of view?
That's such a big question. We stand to lose a lot, and I think Ingmar just put it so well. You start to lose that boundary of what is real and what is not. And as you were both describing this, and as you're asking the question, my response is, well, how do I answer this as a scientist?
That's right. I know
which is my role.
Answer, but I wanted yours too.
Yeah. And I will say this as a social scientist, and coming from my area of practice, that one of the most, there's both facts and then there's the way in which we bring them together and the way we build the conversations around them. And one of the most powerful ways in which to share information is when people ask questions. And the phrase is, the most powerful conclusion you can come to is the one you draw yourself. And there was a superintendent at the National Park Service that I had the chance to work with, and she did a lot of work with interpretation. And early on in my work with climate change, she said, we have this idea that we communicate facts and then people should take action. But what we've realized is what works best is if we invite people in and we get them involved in things and ask for their help. And as they start to do things, then they ask the questions. And then they are very invested in figuring out the answers to them. And that's where things like citizen science become very powerful. And it always feels, I think climate change is so big, and it feels like we don't have time and we need to work so fast. It can be hard to slow down and talk with communities and build those conversations. But the more I see the situation we're in, we need those conversations and to rebuild that local trust person to person and build those experiences and that trust piece by piece, and saying, this is what we're seeing, this is what we can touch, this is what we can measure, and then hear the questions as they're asked and be able to answer them. So that's the answer that I come to from my science and experience.
It makes a lot of sense. I'd just like to, before you jump in, Ingmar, to hear Maria's reflections on what Marcy just said on the asking questions of interaction and building on the learnings, the shared learnings in a group from the Klimatklubben perspective. How does that resonate?
Well, it really resonates a lot because Klimatklubben is very much a conversation among members, among the followers in social media. We co-create every day and build on the ideas of members and people who are engaged. We don't have all the answers as a sort of board of directors or anything. So it is very, how should I put it? It's very community-based. And I think that is what makes it a success to some extent, that people feel that they're among like-minded people and, no questions too dumb, no idea is in vain. It's a living thing. And this is exactly what we need to build on. I'm not a scientist. I used to work in advertising, and funnily enough, that is another place where that saying about conclusions is very valid. You present 3 of the dots and let people add the 4th, and that makes for a stronger image in their head when it comes to building a brand, for instance. But as a sort of concerned citizen and representative of a group of people engaged but not experts, I can say that this approach, being allowed to ask the questions, that's the most beautiful gift we could get from science.
Well, thank you, Maria. That connects so well with what Marcy just said. Ingmar, you wanted to intervene.
I would like to say, I mean, community building is super important, but it's also important that we are really trying to get to the communities that are not really engaged in climate already. Because many times, the global climate movement and also local are kind of a circus, traveling around talking with each other. And that's something
an echo chamber,
a little bit like that, and it's also amplified by how social media works. You're only getting through to the people that agree with you. You're not really having the dialogue. I mean, sometimes you have the crazy bot and trolls, but that's not a dialogue. So we need to figure out how we can get conversation around climate, the future. Science doesn't need to be the word climate, but what we want to achieve: a better society, a better future, and a future we can survive in. Basically, that's kind of basic.
It is basic.
And something I have, the political system are not really working because, the climate movement is not elite. Because if the climate movement have been the elite, the politicians will have following what we want them to do. And they don't. They're kind of living on another island. And we just had the Swedish finance minister saying on the national TV that Sweden has the lowest carbon footprint in the world.
Which is completely not true.
It's not. It's like, that's an opinion. It's not a fact. But it was stated as a fact. And we have a conservative government here. It's not like a climate. I mean, they understand the climate. They're not climate deniers. They're not like Trump saying that it doesn't matter. They say that it matters, but they were mixing up the fact. My point here, we need to get in many different circles. And one circle, I talk to a lot of people where I meet, because we know time, we are talking with a lot of investors, etc. And there's a lot of people that are never going to vote left because of identity. But they really care about the climate. But wherever you look, maybe there's examples out there, but I'm not really aware of them. There is no climate conservative party. Why is that? I don't want to go into the politics because I have full enough with media. I think media is important to move politics, but I really believe that if you want to contribute in climate space and defending of science and what we're talking about at Climate Week New York, we need more of the people active during this week in New York to enter the politics, in the left parties, in the right parties, in the middle, whatever. Just enter there and disrupt it, because they lack of ideas. And I think the reason we got those crazy leaders like Donald Trump is that the competition is so non-existing. So if we get the brains in the politics and the real values, I think we can disrupt.
That's a call to action. Get more,
but I'm
more,
not leaving as a preaching, because I don't want to become a politician.
No, you're needed. You need it at where you're at now. So don't go anywhere. So Marcy, let's talk a bit about the trust for institutions. I mean, you've worked in prestigious institutions in the United States and collaborated with many of them. So how do we regain trust now, as it has been eroded in the public realm, trash talked basically some of the institutions? So how do we regain trust? And is it even possible during the mandate of President Trump?
I hope so. And again, that's such an important question. And I'm thinking about trust, and I think part of it comes from understanding where it has been, and that the process of how do we rebuild trust, because it has been eroded and broken down. And again, I'm going to go back to some of my experiences, particularly with the Park Service. There were a number of studies that were done during my time that I was there, where it showed up that some of the most trusted voices on science were the park rangers in hats, were the folks that people met as they came into parks. And I've been thinking about, where did that trust come from? And where my understanding of where a lot of that comes from is because what the rangers do, their responsibility is to talk about that place and to be local and to hold conversations and connect people with the place that they were in. And one of the challenges we had when I began with the Park Service was, how do we talk about climate change in parks? Because especially at the time that I started in 2011 and 2012, at that time, climate change was melting glaciers and polar bears. It was somewhere far away from most of the parks. And all of the rangers were saying, how do I talk about it here? And so we found some stories in some ways, and we said that connecting people to place was the most important thing we could do. And so actually every place that is now a park or has ever been a park was a home to people. And so that's where my heritage component came in, because we would find stories to talk about in that way. But I think that's where I go to, is that sense, is thinking now is, how do we build that trust? Or again, those local conversations, which don't feel big enough individually, but it's the building them together is one of the ways we can slowly recompile some of that trust of connecting people to the experience and to place, and one interaction at a time. I think that's where I go.
Thank you. That's very thought-provoking in the local context, and so really
Can I add
connecting it.
something
Yes,
there? Trust is really key to building a successful society and successful innovation and businesses. And Sweden have been a country where we have the highest trust in the world for institutions, for the government, etc. Now that is changing, and we really need to get back on track there. So trust is so important.
Indeed. Despite the challenges, I'd like to just bounce off a question when it comes to hope. I mean, for me, hope is a verb. It's not something just a little fluffy thingy, but you need to also train it like a muscle. It's a verb, and you need to really use it. But what gives you hope that science and evidence-based decision-making can really prevail? I'm looking at you again, Marcy. Prevail. And these, we have such difficult times. I mean, what could we cling on to? Because we really need to cling on to something to really move to the next step and build trust and spread the news of, that there is the really powerful facts that we need to adhere.
This is where I will say I am here because at one point I said, I'm so sorry, I can't do something. And that turned into a what if, and then it became the opportunity for me to move to Sweden. And so I would say we never know what the outcomes of any given decision will be or any given action will be. And the power of what if is quite powerful. And in the application, I will say that we sent to the Swedish Research Council, it wasn't a catalog of all the things that had gone wrong. We did put a little bit of that to say why we couldn't collaborate remotely. But we really wrote about, this is what we want to do together. This had been my path. This had been the path and projections of the Program for Heritage Futures. And we said, this is what we want to build together. And so I feel like that's where I put my hope, is in the continuing to ask the what if. What can we build together? What can we do? And I am the living proof that we do not know what might be possible. But if we keep trying and putting our heads together, unexpected things can happen. And that's where I will answer that question.
I really like that answer. It's also about creativity, and the old story of it, one door is closed and then another opens, and you might not even have thought of that door, and might lead to something bigger and bolder, right? So Maria, turning to you from your perspective of Klimatklubben, what brings you hope into the field of science and climate action?
The terrifying fact that so far the scientists have been right gives me a reason to look for hope in what science and scientists do every day. I also am very grateful to be based in Sweden, where trust in science is still high. That makes it a lot easier to find common ground when we try to rally, regular people to sort of collaborate for changing things. So yeah, I think that despite the sometimes horrible report results, science is still the biggest hope we have.
Thank you, Maria. Ingmar.
I must say I don't completely agree with you on one thing, only one thing. You said that we can never know the outcome. There is one scenario we actually know the outcome, and that is if we give up. If we give up, we are knowing for 100% that we will not make it. You will never win a race you give up. We will never solve the climate crisis if we give up. And we have seen the people that want us to give up. Don't listen to them. I mean, just keep going and do things and keep doing it. Not perfect, but just keep moving. Every single crisis, people that have overcome crisis, there's one thing they have in common. Keep moving forward no matter what. And that is what we need to do now. That's the only thing we need to think of every morning. Keep moving forward. If you do that, we will, of course, get through the sound barrier. It's a matter if we're going to do it, yes, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but it will happen. The thing is, though, that the longer it takes, the more people will actually die.
For sure.
So we will make it, I'm totally convinced, but we need to do it today, not tomorrow, because the losses will be too high to let the other side delay us, because they will not going to stop the fossil-free revolution. I mean, it's a technology shift. You can't stop that. I mean, look at the people trying to destroy Spinning Jenny. Didn't go that well.
Didn't go that well.
So just keep going. That's my advice.
My last question was actually for the people that are watching this that might be very concerned. What would your call to action be? And basically, you already delivered yours in terms of never stopping. But maybe would you like to add something?
I can add call to hope.
Call to hope. Okay.
The reason why we feel this enormous resistance and the craziness coming from the anti-science movement is that we are become too powerful to ignore. And this is the last resistance. We just need to break through. That's my hope.
Thank you. So what is your call to action here in terms of people watching this and they might be discouraged because, I mean, the story is grim when it comes to science being under such big threat, but what can they do, Marcy?
I'm going to pull from some wonderful colleagues of mine in Scotland who have worked with loss and heritage along the Scottish coastline. And they've said in this incredibly practical, I will say British way, that at the moment we cannot hold back the sea. We can't keep things as they are. But we can carry forward some of what matters about this place. And what would you like that to be? And in the conversations that I have had with them and that I have seen them host, that has been an incredibly powerful question. And it brings into a lot of creativity. And I would ask everyone listening, we can't keep things as they were. We can't put them back. But we can build things going forward. We can build new things, and we can carry forward some of what matters most, some of what we value going forward. And how do we want to build that? How do we start to imagine that future? And I think that's what having those conversations of where do we want to go is some of the most powerful things we can do. So that's the question that I like to both either start with or we can end with.
Well, thank you. So Maria, what would you like to share as a call to action from your perspective and from the perspective of Klimatklubben?
Speak to each other. Don't hide behind the screen. meet in the streets, connect with people that you wouldn't think of speaking to regularly. Just get out there and connect. That's what I think.
Mm. Well, thank you very much, Maria. And if I may, I'm also going to just pop a call to action. Of course, it's about the campaign. I need to enforce the campaign. And also behind Marcy here, there's a cap. So if you just reach behind you, Marcy, I know you are American. Maybe it's too
much for me.
Too much to put it on because it's too red and too MAGA. But we'll give you the cap, and you could in a few days you might put it on and feel empowered. But we
need to become
more Swedish. We have seen this response. Another American said it was too close to, not to home, but too close to me. Well, yeah, we know what we're saying here. So, but you please take the cap, and I want one too. Actually, I do have one in my office, but I should be wearing one now. Being Swedish, I have no problem wearing this. So, if you want a cap of your own, just like Ingmar said, go to the webpage and order a cap and support science and support scientists, because we're doing a lot to back science. And Ingmar could give a few examples of that.
I just want to add, if you're uncomfortable doing something,
that's a good sign, huh?
When you're making a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So putting on a cap that don't feel 100% comfortable is a way, creating a wave of change. Because what we try here, this is not an anti-Trump cap. It's a cap that we are reclaiming the color of attention. The climate movement, I mean, we must realize it's not working. This strategy is not working. So we need to change tactics. And I think it's time for the climate movement to stop being green and nice and polite and start being red and provocative and a little bit fun as well, and uncomfortable.
That's a good mix. And Maria, of course, I'll bring you a cap. Since I live in the same city that you are, I'll bring a cap to Malmö and I'll make sure you get one. So thank you very much, Maria, for joining us online, and thank you for the beautiful work that Klimatklubben does. And Marcy, of course, we are so happy to have you. And thank you for sharing such profound insights on from your field. It was really very, very thought-provoking in a very good way for me, and I'm sure for the viewers too. And of course, Ingmar for making this possible, this broadcast. And we're now going to move across the big ocean. We are moving to New York, because we do have a studio at Climate Week where I have my dear colleague Nick Nuttall, who is ready to take over and see what's going to happen in New York. And of course, it was a big day yesterday with the Trump incident, or the Trump speech at the United Nations. And as you might know, the United Nations General Assembly is happening at the same time as Climate Week, which is, of course, not a coincidence. So I'm sure there's lots of buzz about what happened yesterday. So let's see if we are ready for New York and go over the big water to the other side of the world. We have several colleagues there. Nick Nuttall, of course, is one of the hosts, and also we have Peter Chakraborty, that is running the U.S. operations of We Don't Have Time, and she is also in the studio on and off hosting interviews. I was there last year, and it was very busy. But last year was a bit different because the sign wasn't so much under threat. So here we go. Here's Nick. So Nick, how are things after what happened yesterday in the General Assembly? Is there much talk about the speech, or is what's going on? We can't hear you right now, so let's see if we can get some sound on Nick.
The sound here?
Here we go. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now, Katarina?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. So I think a lot of people were flabbergasted by the speech of Donald Trump in the United Nations, but I liked what Bill McKibben said. You know, he's a great solar, supporter and campaigner. In fact, he'll be on our show tomorrow. And he wrote today that yesterday's speech by Trump was not the longest speech. That was done by Fidel Castro in the 1960s. It wasn't the most aggressive speech. That was done by a Soviet leader, but it was the most stupid speech that's ever been delivered in the United Nations. And I think that kind of sums it up from listening to most of the people I've been talking to around here. This was incredibly a stupid speech. So Yeah, when he eventually retires, he can take the laurels of making the most stupid speech ever in the United Nations.
Wow. So what's happening today in the studio? What
Well,
we look
I wanted
forward
to actually just say what's happening today on my chest, actually, if that's all right,
Oh, dear.
Katharina, because I chose to choose this T-shirt here that's called the Kurdish Statistic. It's a choir in Berlin that sings climate songs and is very active on social issues. And I was just thinking on We Don't Have Time, if there are people actually watching the show, if you've got a decent T-shirt out there with a good slogan on, then please send it to us. You can even send it to me in Berlin, and just make sure it's a size small in general. But I think we can use the T-shirts that many people are using to actually have on our shows, and I think I really welcome that. What have we got up today? Well, I'm really going to be very excited about the first guest we have on our show. We've got a chap called Lucas Gutterman, and we're going to be talking about the decision by Microsoft to end Windows 10 in October this year. Now, half the world's computers are run on Microsoft 10. And what this means in terms of climate, what it means in terms of electronic waste, what it means in terms of the circular economy is unbelievable. I'm going to learn more about that. I'm really excited about the show, and that's coming up right after we've said hello and goodbye.
Well, thank you very much, Nick. Enjoy New York and enjoy your interviews today. And again, a thank you to Marcy and to Maria, and of course, as always, to Ingmar for making this possible. So over and out to you, Nick.
Bye. It's a long bumper. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to New York Climate Week, here live from this wonderful city on the East Coast of the United States. The 14th of October is coming quite quickly, and that is International E-Waste or Electronic Waste Day. And I imagine people say, okay, fine, Nick, that's really great. But so, yeah. And there really is a big fat but, by the way, in this. And there is a big fat and that's because, ironically, that is going to be the day, the 14th of October, when Microsoft ends support for Windows 10 and or free automatic support for Windows 10. And that also comes in advance of October's International Repair Day, which is on October 18th. So I can imagine people saying, okay, Nick, but I'm on Windows 10, or am I on Windows 10? I don't really know if I'm on Windows 10. And anyway, if I am on Windows 10, I've got a mate that runs a nice little shop down in some back street of London, and he's called Josh, and he knows how to repair anything electronic. So what do I worry about? Well, I think it's much bigger than you imagine, even if you're even aware of it. And it's really important because most people are still not aware. And according to the Right to Repair in Europe, a coalition representing over 180 organizations from 30 European countries, they estimate that some 400 million personal computers could be trashed as a result of this Windows 10 disappearing in terms of support. In the United States, the campaign is being spearheaded by U.S.PIRG Education Fund, which, if I understand correctly, often champions the rights of the consumer on a range of issues. So I'm very pleased to welcome to the stage with us Lucas Gutterman, who has worked for the USPIRG to design their campaign on the Windows 10 absurdity. And I'll also be having David Olson, the co-founder of We Don't Have Time, who's with us in New York, on the stage too. So welcome, please come on the stage, Lucas. Come on the stage, David. Great. So, yeah, for many people, this is something that's just like a rabbit that's jumped out of a hat, right? I think, unless you're in the knowing about this, I think most people have no idea what's happening, right? They've got maybe some notion, but many not at all. And I wonder around the world in so many countries where Windows 10 is actually, the operating system. But so, Lucas, could you maybe say to the audience, I mean, from your perspective, and you've designed the campaign here to bring awareness about it, what's going on? And what will Microsoft do in October? And what does it mean for you? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for the environment? Okay.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Nick. I think you're exactly right that people do not expect this to happen. They turn on their computer, they do the work they need to do, and it just works, right? But behind the scenes, we know that we need to get security updates. We need to get those features that actually keep our computer safe from bad actors that are trying to hack or attack us. And so what's happening is on October 14th, which is also International E-Waste Day.
Crazy, isn't it?
Which is a crazy coincidence. Microsoft has decided to end support for Windows 10. So what that means is that all of those computers that are on Windows 10 and can't upgrade to the new version, Windows 11, will die what we call a slow death. So they won't just turn off right away, but they're going to stop getting free updates. And that means that over time, as more vulnerabilities are discovered, your computer is becoming less and less secure. And if you continue to use it, you're becoming more and more open to attacks.
Yeah.
And then besides just security updates and privacy, eventually you won't be able to access your favorite websites. You won't be able to use the tools you need because websites like Netflix or Google Docs or whatever you might need to use, they require a certain amount of newness of the computer to actually allow access. And so over time, you'll sort of get this slow death where not only do you become more and more vulnerable, but you actually just lose functionality.
Right.
And so
what has happened in the past? What has happened with, I don't know, Windows? Has there Windows 8 or 7 or Windows 1? Or is this a playbook of this, what's happened in the past as well, but people weren't concerned or were just frustrated? Or is it bigger with this Windows 10 thing?
Yeah, I mean, all machines need maintenance, right? And so all computers need security updates and software updates. This is kind of a normal part of the process to some extent. Windows 10 has lasted for 10 years, and now we're reaching the end. What's different this time is so many computers cannot upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. That's what's really outrageous. So we estimate that 400 million PCs can't upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. And so those 400 million users, the 180 million computers that are used in small businesses, those folks are left with a tough choice. They either have to throw out a computer that should still work because it can't upgrade to Windows 11, or they have to remain open to attacks. So that's what's really different here, is that Windows 11 has really strict requirements and Microsoft is not allowing computers to upgrade to the new version.
Right. And tell me then, I mean, I often, when I buy a computer, I actually talk to my son, or both my sons, who are probably your age, and they know a lot more about computers than some old fart like me, right? And I ask them, they go, yeah, you should get this one, Dad. And I go, okay, but when I look at all the things on it, I actually don't need all those things, right? I don't game, right? So I don't need a gaming, hard drive. I don't need all this. So, I mean, I don't know what is wonderful about Windows 11. Maybe that's it. I've even got it on my computer. I don't know what's special about it, but I can imagine it's probably going to give me functionality I don't really need, or the average person doesn't need anyway. I'd be quite happy with Windows 10, right? And just carrying on for another few years with Windows 10.
Yeah, I think that's a really common feeling. It used to be maybe 10 or 15 years ago that each new upgrade gave us really exciting new features and everyone rushed out to buy the new phone or the new laptop. That's increasingly not the case. And actually, I think that's fine, right? When we look at cars, it used to be that we had to buy a new car every couple of years when they were new technology. We got huge improvements in safety. But now in the US, we want our cars to last 13 years. That's how long they last on average. Why can't laptops be the same way? We're stuck in this kind of norm that we replace our laptops every 4 years. But in fact, we're not really using our laptops to do that much computing in the traditional sense. We're going on websites. All of the computing is done in the cloud. We're going on Netflix. We're going on Google Docs. We're checking our email. It's really a tool, right? And a tool should be able to last a lot longer than just a couple of years.
And what about, I mean, we're talking about Microsoft right now. Do we get these problems with Apple, with their products?
Yeah, this is a problem with all technology that uses software. So all phones and laptops, smart home devices, smart watches, things like that.
Yeah.
Recently, we ran a campaign and made a huge victory convincing Google to extend support for Chromebooks. So Chromebooks are those really popular laptops that are used in schools. And we released a report called Chromebook Churn that found that schools that had spent government money during the COVID-19 pandemic to buy laptops for distance learning, we're now going to have hundreds of thousands of laptops that we're going to lose support. And again, go through this slow death where they don't shut off right away, but even state testing websites that schools use will become inaccessible because the laptops are too old. So we pushed Google. We got a lot of coverage on that. We got students and teachers and PTAs to testify and support. And Google actually announced that Chromebooks will last for 10 years.
Okay.
So that's really exciting.
So
all
it
across
also
the
shows
board.
it can be done.
It also shows it can be done. Right.
Yeah.
So this is really a business decision, not a technical decision.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I just want to go back to one of the things that's different about this time too, with Microsoft and Windows 10 is the huge number of computers that are still on Windows 10. So when the previous version ended, when Windows 8.1 ended, about 3% or 2% or so of computers were still using that version 8.1. But right now, 44% of PCs are still using Windows 10.
So it's almost half. And that's worldwide, yes?
That's worldwide. Yep.
Right, okay. And as I say, I think what's also changed is that the spread of the ability of developing countries to actually have a personal computer that probably it's going to run on either Apple or Microsoft, right? Has gone much further, and that's good, of course. But if you're in, Kenya or I don't know, Nepal, or what happens to you, right? You're going to have to find a lot of money to try and get a new computer, or you're offline, right?
Or you're going to get all of the PCs that Americans and Europeans are getting rid of that are no longer supported. And you'll say, oh, this is great. I can use this for my classes, for entertainment, for school, whatever, for work, but without any security updates.
Without any security updates, right.
And you're getting something that has a expiration date because eventually it's going to, again, not have access to those websites.
David, you want to say something, yeah?
Well, I think this goes to show the enormous responsibility of corporations to handle their waste actually efficiently and responsibly. And also, when I buy a phone, for instance, or a laptop, I'm not really buying a phone. I'm looking for the ability to phone or to laptop. And I think part of the responsibility these corporations need to take is to understand this, that they're providing a need for the consumer, and they should do that in the most responsible way. And they're responsible, not the consumer.
They're no longer in the game of just giving us some novelty, right? I mean, these have now become almost like utilities from the old days. These are like the train companies and the big telephone companies of the past, right? This is providing, the ability to function in a modern world, right? And so much stuff now is so like, security as well, right? Everyone's now panicking about their bank accounts. They need security that's absolutely rock solid on their computers, and this sort of thing. This is not a marginal topic in terms of people's lives, right?
Can I ask you something? It must be a huge security issue as well, because if you bring one of those outdated Windows 10 laptops into a network somewhere, that can be sort of a Trojan horse. Don't you agree? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. So Paul Roberts, who runs the Secure and Resilient Future Foundation, he said that ransomware gangs and hackers are kind of rubbing their hands together, excited for the 180 million PCs that are used in businesses that are now going to become vulnerable to attack. Right. So yes, I think it's absolutely a security issue. I do want to go back to the point you make though about providing the service, right, rather than the product. I think that that's totally true, right? In that we are really paying to get the ability to do the things we want to do with the computer, right? But I also want to, and that companies are responsible for disposal, but I also want to be sure that it's still the case that consumers own the things they buy, right? So there can be, I think sometimes there's a thought of, oh, well, rather than me buying a computer, I could pay a fee and I could, rent the computer. I could get a
Lease
service
it,
contract
yeah.
or lease it.
Yeah.
And, for some people that could be a good choice, right? But it has to be really, really clear that you're giving up your ownership rights to do that. And so there needs to be transparency, right? And for lots of people that like to tinker and like to own the things they buy and want it to last as long as possible, that might not be the right choice. And I want to make sure that we still have the ability to kind of own what we buy.
The two models
Yeah.
should be
Right.
able to coexist, right?
Yes.
But as sustainably and as circular as possible.
Right.
Let's just get back to the heart of it for us in terms of we don't have time, so we're primarily interested in the environment and climate change. And so, I mean, so my understanding, just correct me if I'm wrong, that the biggest emissions of a computer are not when they arrive in the box in your house to take out and start using. They occur before.
Yeah, that's right. So 80% of the environmental harms of our technology comes from the manufacturing of it in the first place.
Right.
So, on the one hand, you sort of see manufacturers advertise that new devices are more energy efficient or they're made out of recycled plastic. That's great, but it's a little bit of a red herring. The reality is that the best way to stop the environmental harms of the tech that we buy is to use it for as long as possible and manufacture less.
Yeah.
And right now we're throwing out 500 pounds of electronic waste per second in the US.
Right.
And so unfortunately, these Windows PCs, if Microsoft does not extend support, they're going to become part of that statistic. And we estimate that it could be up to 1.6 billion pounds of e-waste just from Windows 10 PCs that can't upgrade.
What's so shocking about it is that in some ways, Microsoft is, in some areas, a bit of a poster child on some of the work it does do in terms of, trying to make sure that data centers are not as polluting as they should be and, other things that they do. And yet here is a big running sore, which is really built-in obsolescence, which is about making profits, right? It's just got to be about making profits. It's not about actually helping any of us.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, Microsoft actually has pretty good sustainability commitments.
Yeah.
So they've committed to be net zero emissions by 2030.
Yeah.
And that's exactly one of the reasons why we keep pointing out that this decision to not allow Windows 10 to upgrade to Windows 11 for all users or to supply free automatic updates for all of those Windows 10 users that would otherwise be left behind. This is just not in line with their sustainability goals.
Exactly. I wanted to just flip the conversation a little bit because we were doing some research before on what people are saying about this, not just what you're saying, but you're saying the best stuff, Lucas, of course, but there's other people saying things too. So there's a choir out there. And but we just want to say what Microsoft is quite open about the fact they want you to get rid of your computer pretty much in what their website says. So David, what does it say?
They're upfront and quite brief about it. So let me just read, not verbatim, but paraphrasing. Your Windows 10 end of support checklist. Back up your data. Okay.
That's a good thing. Yeah, whatever you do, back it up anyway.
Safely erase your data. If from the device, then one assumes. If you're planning to recycle or donate your PC, it's essential to securely erase your data to prevent unauthorized access. All right. And then recycle your PC responsibly.
Yeah.
So they're putting all the onus really on
you,
on the consumer.
Right. The onus is on consumers that are probably the least likely to have the knowledge and the capacity to actually solve this problem, especially if you're the type of person who's kept your PC for 10 years.
Sure.
You're maybe not the most tech savvy person necessarily. You could be, but you could also say, wait, back up my data, erase it, recycle it. Where's the local recycling facility that's going to take e-waste near me? In the US, it's quite complicated. Every single city, every single state is different. And then the reality, of course, is that only about a third of e-waste in the world is recycled, and recycled does not mean recovered. So we cannot recycle our way out of this problem. In fact, our ability to recover all of the minerals that are used to make our devices is quite primitive in lots of ways.
Because the devices are not built for circularity.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Let me just put a European voice in on this as well, which is Mark DeWitt. And for anybody that doesn't know him, he's a real authority on the circular economy. He's a former expert with the UN Environment Programme, and he's co-founder of a new venture called Current. And he sent this message. I asked him to send us a message, and so I'm just quoting him directly now from this. He says, at the core of the circular economy lies a simple principle: keeping products in use for longer. Every product that continues to function is one less that needs to be manufactured, purchased, and ultimately discarded. And in today's world, hardware and software are inseparable. Repairing hardware is only one side of the equation. The availability of software updates is equally essential. Updates are a relatively low-cost way to keep devices secure, functional, and relevant. But they also highlight the responsibility and power that rests in the hands of the software providers. So Fairphone, he mentions Fairphone. I don't know if you have Fairphone in the States. In Europe, it's...
we don't have it.
Okay, Fairphone, for example, has demonstrated it's possible to support smartphones with software updates for many years beyond industry norms, proving that long-term support is both feasible and beneficial. By contrast, Microsoft's decision to end support for Windows 10 runs counter to the ethos of the circular economy. It exposes how the decisions of a few large players can either unlock or undermine the potential of circularity. He goes on, but I'll just say, true circularity requires that products are designed both physically and digitally to last. Anything less is a missed opportunity for sustainability. I think this is chiming a lot with what you're saying, Lucas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're singing from the same song sheet.
Yeah.
So I think, as I was kind of saying, as technology becomes more kind of mature product, in fact, hardware, while still being really important and needs to be repairable and needs to be designed to last, increasingly software is what pushes us to replace something that should still work.
Yeah.
So we might actually prefer to keep our old iPhone that has the headphone jack and has the physical button, but you can't actually use it for the apps you need for work or school, right? Or it's no longer secure and it's slowing down.
Yeah.
And so while there are some kind of simple things that we can do for hardware, like replacing the battery or getting the screen fixed, if we don't have the software support that it takes to run our devices, we're pushed to replace things that should still work.
But you know, it's been a battle as well. You just mentioned batteries in iPhones and things like that. It's been a fight in some countries to get them to ensure that they're easy to exchange rather than gluing them into the phone. And that's been a big fight by the right to repair movement. Are you part of the right to repair movement, or is PIRG part of the right to repair?
Yes, PIRG is part of, I mean, the right to repair movement. We're obviously in the States, and right to repair in EU is focused on EU. But you mentioned the EU battery directive, which we're really excited about, which in 2028, phones will have to actually have replaceable batteries. So that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and you need the right tools and you need the right things. And so there've been a lot of ways in which they're trying to stop us being sustainable. Many gadget makers making it difficult to repair things, not having the right screws, or maybe they're not the right nut, or I don't know what it is, but
right. Well, they want to control the device, right? And they want to control the way that we use it, and then also the choices that we make to replace and repair. And so, you know, again, I think maybe a couple of years ago, people were sort of less upset about that because they were really enticed by the new device.
So exciting.
But, you know, in the iPhone 16 that came out, whenever it was last year, you know, the big new feature was an extra button. To take a photo. So, you know, I just don't think people are that impressed anymore. And as they said, like you, they say, well, I just need a laptop that works. I don't want to be forced to upgrade something that I don't need to.
Tell us about back markets, because they're part of this campaign, this global campaign, it looks like, certainly Europe and the USA. They're a refurbisher of many kinds of gadgets, but laptops as well. They seem to be growing in Europe, and I know my girlfriend bought her daughter a new laptop through the back market thing because they're affordable and they seem to be high quality in terms of refurbishment. They're offering some kind of help on Windows 10, but I don't know what it is. We were hoping to have somebody on the show from back market, but I think they're offering some ability to extend the life in some way of these laptops. So that's a helpful thing. Has Microsoft said anything to you guys about this?
Yeah. So after we delivered 100,000 petition signatures from PIRG supporters to Microsoft, and worked with our friends at Green Century Capital Management, which is a shareholder advocacy group, Microsoft announced that for the first time ever, individual consumers will be able to pay to extend support and get paid security updates. And then schools get a discounted rate. So for each school, it's, I think, $1 in the first year per computer. So this was a good step in the right direction. But again, if Microsoft wants to do the best thing for the environment, that's to extend support automatically and not force people
automatically
to pay.
for free and not force
people to pay just to get security updates to keep using their computer.
Because this is 2025, but next year's 2026, and they could do something else, right? Like withdraw even the ability to pay for updates.
Yeah, they've only committed to 1 year for consumers. So you know, it's 70 some odd dollars. It's not necessarily cheap to just get an extra year of support.
You don't have the money. It's expensive, right?
Yeah. I would like just to kind of share some kind of practical tips for people too that might be facing this problem on what they can do. So I mean, the first thing is that, you know, we are calling on Microsoft to make this change, and so people should sign the petition, and they should let Microsoft know that they're upset that, you know, Windows 10 will expire and not get updates on October 14th. And so folks can look online, you know, on pirg.org, or just Google this Microsoft 10 death
and
date
in Europe,
program.
the right to repair people.
Right to repair in EU. They have a petition as well. And then if you do have a Windows 10 PC and you're not quite sure what to do, there are options, right? So you can choose to pay. We don't necessarily recommend that, but it might be the best choice for certain people. You can install a alternative operating system. So folks are installing things like Linux to keep their hardware in use and get security updates. And you can go on endof10.org, which has some guides on how to do that. I think
that's something that Back Market's offering as well. Yeah.
And then if you ultimately do need to replace your computer, we recommend that you buy from refurbished marketplaces like Back Market. My phone is from Back Market, and so the quality is good. And so if you do have to upgrade, you want to make sure that your device is recycled properly, and folks can search online, or they can go to Call to Recycle in the US and find out where those e-waste recycling places are. And then you can buy a new computer that is refurbished or used. That's going to reduce that environmental impact we talked about, which mostly comes from the manufacturing.
But Lucas, well, we're going to have to wrap up there. David, you just want to
real quick. You notice this symbol here? It's a climate love. And that's what we don't have time give to climate leaders and those who provide the solutions, such as yourself. But we do also give out climate warnings. So I'll create one for Microsoft right now on the platform. We don't have time.
That's a
to
good
back
idea.
your campaign.
Appreciate it.
Perfect. Good idea, David. So thanks very much indeed for being with us. Very interesting. And I hope that we had 2 million viewers yesterday. So I hope we had another 2 million today. And that if they have Windows 10, now they know what's happening and actually have some tips on what to do as well. Okay.
Thanks so much.
Cheers, Lucas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. We change over. Good. Since taking office, as we know, President Donald Trump has waged an aggressive war against climate action, against scientists, and against scientific institutions. His actions have been condemned by many people in the United States and also beyond, and by scientific academies in particular, who are saying this is absolutely unacceptable. The timing and the overweening support given back to the fossil fuel industry could not be more unfortunate. Science informs us that we have just 5 years to halve greenhouse gas emissions to stand a 50-50 chance of meeting the safety goals of the landmark Paris Climate Agreement. We Don't Have Time has launched over several months now a campaign which is meant to be deliberately a bit cheeky and meant to actually say, you know, I'm sorry, President Trump, but you can't use the color red, and you can't use some of these wordings, make science great again, or make this great again. You can't use this. We're going to take it back. It's up to us. We are the many. We decide what's going on, not just one person. So our campaign is about defending scientists. It's about defending climate scientists, climate change institutions, and mobilizing an international response to this nonsense happening in the US, but also among other populist leaders and politicians in other countries. So it's not just the USA. So please go to We Don't Have Time's website, and please go to www.wedon'thavetime.org/make science great again and check it out and maybe join the debate and the action. One organization that has stood steadfast on climate change now, but also for many, many years, is the Union of Concerned Scientists. And we are therefore delighted to welcome Carlos Javier Martinez, a senior climate scientist at the Union of Concerned Scientists. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Carlos has worked for the National Science Foundation, also here in the USA, as well as the Union of Concerned Scientists. You got your PhD in Earth and Environmental Sciences at Columbia University.
Yep.
I hope I got all this right. He leads the American Meteorological Society's Committee on Spirituality, Multi-Faith Outreach and Science, and is a council member for the American Geophysical Union.
Yep.
I don't know how you've managed to do all those things in such. You're obviously a young chap, so
Thank you.
well done, incredible.
Appreciate it.
So, Carlos, so the Union of Concerned Scientists, you recently issued a list of some of the actions, damaging actions, taken since the new administration of Trump came to office. Can you illuminate an international audience? What were some of the things you singled out?
Yeah, so I have 5 key things specific to climate, but it's relevant for other sciences that are being attacked by this administration. The first is the massive layoffs that we've seen specifically with the federal government. One example is with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Some over 2,000 federal employees have been laid off, which has accumulated to about 27,000 years of experience. Wow. And that is institutional knowledge so critical for science funding, for the disbursement of those funds, for the data and the infrastructure that NOAA and other federal agencies keep to utilize, to maintain, and to have publicly accessible for broader communities to access. And so that's a huge concern right now, is not only the gap in science funding, but also the gap in the human infrastructure that allows science to continue on to grow, not only in higher education, but for frontline communities and communities that need this type of funding and information to take and tackle the issues at hand. The second one is the cancellation of grants. We've seen this with Human and Health Services, with NOAA, with the National Science Foundation, which is a large grant-making agency that I was at previously. We've seen numerous grants that have either been canceled, or there have been numerous delay tactics that have caused institutions that receive those funds to now lay off their staff, to change their timelines, because the disbursement of those funds were not given to them at the time that is needed.
Right. So they kind of got ready to receive it. They maybe even hired people ready to do the jobs that were being asked of.
Yep.
Whether it's putting solar panels on a community roof or something like that, and then suddenly the money's not there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is devastating, especially for early career professionals like myself, who are starting their careers, you know, pre-tenure at a faculty position to at a research lab, that rely heavily on federal funding to do their research, that are now having to shift gears and figure out what to do here in the United States.
Right.
The third thing is the budget proposal that the president issued for this upcoming fiscal year.
This was this great, wonderful, super budget as it was built.
Yes, yeah. That
they didn't even use the word bigly, but yeah.
It's nothing but, unfortunately, it is a huge brain drain and complete science defunding of science, essentially. With NOAA, for example, they propose to completely eliminate its research arm, the Oceanic and Atmospheric Research Line Office. That office is so vital for forecasting. doing, whether that is the work that they do with hurricane reconnaissance, where they have aircraft going into the eye of the storm and measure what is happening in real time. That information is then transferred to the National Weather Service, which issues the watches and warnings to provide the best available science and information that keeps the communities, especially in coastal areas, safe from hurricanes. We've also seen the removal of other information, including data sets, such as the $1 billion disaster data set, such as the climate.gov website, both of which have important, valuable information, the $1 billion data set specifically to how we are seeing the increases in disasters and the economic toll that is facing the United States as a consequence of these disasters that have been linked to climate change. And then also climate.gov, which is a huge educational resource for the American public and around the world to learn about different atmospheric and oceanic phenomena, to be educated and provide educational tools for the broader community. That website was completely removed. We saw the termination of the U.S. Global Change Research Program, which is an interagency body that issues the important national climate assessments in the United States that assess how these greenhouse gases, the emissions, and the warming of our planet are affecting different regions across the US. We saw, in addition to that, the removal of the authors that were working on the 6th iteration of that assessment. And then, so that was the fourth thing, is the removal of climate information and data sets. And then the last thing is they're replacing it with climate disinformation, which is what we saw very clearly the past 2 months with the Environmental Protection Agency proposing to rescind the endangerment finding, which in essence allows the EPA to regulate greenhouse gas emissions, because in 2009, they did a study and found that greenhouse gas emissions are air pollutants, as the Supreme Court made the judicial decision on 2 years prior, and told the EPA, hey, now what you need to do is assess whether or not those air pollutants cause harm to the American public health and to the welfare of the United States. And that was the endangerment finding. They said, yes, it does. And so now we have the legal authority under the Clean Air Act, which has existed for 50 plus years to do that. And now they're saying, oh, we're going to now rescind it. And so they use this DOE sham climate report that was authored by 5 climate contrarians to basically muddle what is scientific consensus on this issue that has been established now for decades, and essentially using climate disinformation to stoke uncertainty when there is none, essentially. So we're seeing that in the climate space, which is very concerning, no pun intended, working for UCS, but also we're seeing it too with public health. A recent study with UCS found that this administration alone in the first 6 months has attacked science over 400 times. The first administration did it over 200 times, but in a span of 4 years. And previous administrations less than 100 in a span of 4 or 8 years in their terms. And so it's very unsettling. It's quite concerning. And UCS has been very vocal for decades, and especially now, because many of what we're seeing with this whole climate disinformation agenda is very clearly linked to fossil fuel industry tactics that we have seen for decades.
Exactly. I mean, it's always been interesting with the fossil fuel industry. It was always sort of denial of climate change. It was like, oh, if climate change is happening, maybe it's happening, maybe not, okay, and then, oh, maybe it's just like too expensive to deal with it, you know, and then, you know, just have these iterations, and suddenly we've got this kind of rocket coming out of its housing when Donald Trump and the fossil fuel industry, because they are trying to say it's spread this disinformation because they know they're losing, right? I mean, the head of the European Union, von der Leyen, said at some global renewables conference 2 days ago, happening here in New York, that solar power is 41% cheaper than the cheapest fossil fuel you could find. It's still 41% cheaper. Why would you want to waste your money? But fossil fuel as Donald Trump's best new mates, aren't they? Because they actually pay for his money to be elected.
Yeah.
So it's payback time.
No,
right?
this is tactics. Like one example is UCS. We have a report called Decades of Deceit. It highlights all of the tactics that the fossil fuel industry has been doing for several decades now, using similar tactics as the tobacco industry, actually, to stoke uncertainty when there's none, cherry pick data, bring a very few select group of climate dismissiveness people, contrarians, to basically muddle the waters when there is none.
Yep. No, I remember once being on a TV show some years ago with somebody from the Heritage Foundation. I think it was Al Jazeera TV. It was from a climate conference, and he was, talking about how, blah, 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 there's really no climate change and stuff like that. I said, it's amazing, right? I mean, if you go to 10 doctors, this was a metaphor for scientists around the world. If you go to the top 10 doctors around the world on climate change, and they say, unless you give up cigarettes right now and really cut back on the fats, you're going to be dead within a few months, right? Or you go to this one doctor, which is the Heritage Foundation, they say, oh, don't worry about it. You don't need to give up cigarettes. It's fine. It's overrated, all this hell stuff. And you go, okay, that's great. I'll choose that one because it's so easy, right? I mean, this is the kind of choices. We've got the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, all the scientists from all around the world, hand-chosen by their own governments, not just kind of dreamt up by somebody. They don't even produce a report of original science. They peer review the peer-reviewed science. And then they all discuss it. And then they come up with their report. And then the governments sign it off, which is why some people accuse the IPCC of underplaying the extent of climate change. But at least they have consensus and the governments have all agreed. And then somebody comes along and says it's a hoax. I'm sorry, but we're well beyond that debate. It's just, as Bill McKibben said, the great solar guy, I think this morning said, Donald Trump delivered the most stupid speech ever heard in the United Nations. Not the longest, that was Fidel Castro in the 1960s. Not the most aggressive because that was a Soviet leader, but the most stupid. But I get the feeling that he probably knows it's stupid. You know what I mean? I don't know. He's not been on one of our shows, so maybe I'll ask him next time.
To me, it's classic disinformation.
And
it's unfortunate that the highest power in the land of the United States is communicating disinformation to the broader community.
So what is happening as a response to this? I mean, I think this is really important because I'm a European, I'm in New York just short term, but I do read, and it seems like the normal response to all this would have been quite noisy, but it hasn't been very noisy. But maybe it will get noisier. I don't know. But what's your feeling about what's going on?
I think the scientific community is very upset at the misrepresentation or complete falsehoods that, for example, the DOE sham climate report, when citing their literature, completely skewed or disinformed the scientific findings that scientists have. And so we're seeing both here at UCS, also just a galvanized energy here at Climate Week as well, in responding to, in real time, what is going on with respect to the proposed cuts with science funding here in the US, the layoffs that we have been seeing that are continually had, that there's still a hiring freeze in the federal government, with some exceptions. And so there are a couple examples. One is UCS, we released a sign-on letter to the broader community for scientists to sign on to tell the EPA administrator to not rescind the endangerment finding. And here's why. And we had over 1,000 scientists sign on to that letter. We've had the National Academies, which a huge, important institution here in the United States. They provide scientific judgment to the federal government when it pertains to decisions that require science for information. They issued in 3 weeks, because the EPA only provided public comments on the proposal for removing the endangerment finding, a fast track report that they gave to the EPA as a public comment, essentially saying that the endangerment finding is accurate, it has stood the test of time, and since the endangerment finding, the scientific evidence has only enhanced the endangerment finding. And that is really foundational for the academies to do that, to
mhm.
make that decision to stand up for science.
Mm.
In addition, we've seen professional societies too, like the American Meteorological Society, which consists of over 12,000 members, whether that's your local weather station broadcaster, the National Weather Service, other professionals. They rebuked the DOE sham climate report. The American Geophysical Union, which has over 500,000 community members around the world, they've not only also rebuked the actions by the EPA and DOE, but also have done several litigations against the administration recently, specifically on the mass firings of federal employees. And then we've also seen action by scientists themselves, which I've been so encouraged by as an early career professional, seeing, you know, senior leadership, seeing folks who already have tenure stand up to science. We saw, for example, in the DOE sham climate report, we saw doctors Andy Dessler and Dr. Bob Cobb, co-authors with 80 other scientists, developing a 400 plus page rebuke of the climate report, going detail by detail as to why this is either factually false or misrepresented the scientific consensus. We saw just recently climate.gov, right? That was deleted as a website. Climate.us is now up and running. And just yesterday, they put back on that website the National Climate Assessment so that anyone can access it through climate.us. And they're trying to restore information and potentially data sets.
So these are websites that are not government websites. They're taking the reports that were done for the government, and now putting them on different websites.
Yes, and these are the same folks that were in the federal government who were laid off and are standing up and saying, this is vital, crucial information for not only the American public, but everyone around the world. And so we're going to develop our own website, fundraise, and have that available information for anyone to utilize as well, which has been really fantastic. And then lastly, the weather and climate live stream. There was a 100-hour climate and weather live stream a couple months ago.
Yeah, we saw it. Yeah, we were watching it when we don't have time, and it was watched loads of places in Europe. My
great colleague at UCX, Mark Alessi, and several friends of mine in the climate space did a 100-hour live stream where scientists, many of them are introverts. They don't openly speak out.
They're sometimes not the best communicators, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But they're learning fast.
And they're seeing the importance to do so because their funding is being attacked. Their institutions, their public or private institutions are being attacked as well. Their own scientific integrity, like the work that they do, is being misconstrued. And so the broader community is coming together through coalition partnership building and also events like the live stream to really speak on not only the science itself, but the value it has with taxpayer dollars and the investments that the federal government has been having for years in the United States to be a leader in weather and climate information.
So I was going to just say on that, because I mean, also, there has been a mobilization also of the academies beyond the United States as well. I mean, the Royal Society in London, which is the oldest academy in the world, has issued statements about what's going on here. French Academy of Sciences. We had a chap on a show in Paris just a couple of months ago from the French Academy, and he made the really important point that this data in the United States, which the US government feels that it can retire for some reason or take offline, is actually not 100% American science, right? It's actually a global collaboration between scientists in Europe and Japan and all around the world. It's our science as much as it's your science, sort of thing. And he also made the point that all this slashing of the U.S.A. budget, I mean, any sensible person knows anything about overseas development aid would know that there are sometimes projects which maybe weren't the best investment of money. That's the risk you run if you want to help poor people in developing countries, to have a prospect for life, right? It's not perfect. But most of it actually serves a fantastic job. And he, from the Academy in France, was saying that there's now a big fat hole in the global disease defense network because the US was funding some centers in Africa that were looking for new diseases coming through and collecting genetic data. And the Europeans were doing something else somewhere else, and somebody else was doing something in the Caribbean. I can't remember. But that funding has left those stations silent. So we have a big gap in the wall now of defending ourselves from the next, pandemic. Right?
Yeah, we saw that too with U.S.A. That was the first agency that was gone, helping international development, the impacts of that.
Yeah,
we're seeing that with recovery issues related to FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, that's there in real time when there is ever a disaster too.
So we had on the show yesterday, you might be interested, the head of, it's called the Sabine Center for Law, something like that at Columbia University. It's called Michael Gerard. And they are chronicling and collecting all the legal cases now that are being coming through the pipeline because of this action against climate change in the US by the federal administration and the lawsuits that are cooking in many different places. And so, I think it's watch this space right now. I think this whole legislative action against what's going on is ready to explode sort of big time. And I suppose we just hope the Supreme Court is balanced enough in some of these cases to not award them all in favor of one person sitting in the White House. What are you going to do from here? We're running close to time. We've just got a few more minutes left. Where does it go from here, the campaign that you guys are running?
So we are going to continue the fight. We've been coalescing here at NYC Climate Week with other nonprofit environmental organizations, also multi-faith groups, which I've done some work with, bringing,
yes, I wanted to ask you about that as well. Before we just wrap up, tell me about that work with the multi-faith community action. What is that?
So part of my work at the American Meteorological Society is developing a multi-faith organization called Cosmos, Committee on Spirituality,
nice
Multi-Faith
name.
Outreach and Science.
Nice
Because when you
acronym.
think about it, the science, spirituality, both, organizations or individuals who are religious or spiritual but not religious, and also indigenous spiritualities, there are areas of shared space, ethical space, when it comes to environmentalism. Here in the United States, there are some organizations and groups that are faith-based, that are skeptical or apathetic to climate change and the issues. And part of that can be because they don't have, for example, a scientist who subscribes and aligns with their belief system, a faith-based or something. So the committee seeks to do two things. One is to formulate a space of scientists and professionals like myself who subscribe with both lenses to share resources and information that could be useful as a professional society about these topics. And then also more broadly work with multi-faith organizations like Green Faith, Interfaith Power and Light, the Laudato Si movement, other faith-based and spiritual organizations to address topics such as resilience against weather disasters, knowing that especially here in the US, many houses of worship rely heavily on their spiritual leader when there is an impending storm. They heed the advice of them, sometimes more so than the National Weather Service, to issues like environmental justice and also mental health, whether or not you subscribe to a faith or a spirituality, the processes by which you might grieve or mentally process when it comes to these issues can be derived from meditative practices, prayers, from some faith-based and spiritual tenets. And so our organization has blossomed within that committee at AMS and with the American Geophysical Union as well to support the idea that this takes all of us. It takes one village, and we respect our individual belief systems. But with this one planet that we have, that we hold so dearly, being good stewards of this common home is vital. And so we should have this ethical space to have conversations, build relationships between science and faith and spirituality that can inspire and provide hope to the actions that are needed to address these climate challenges.
So I wonder, when you think about it, I can't think of any faith groups, the head of any faith group that has, said climate change is a hoax, right?
Right.
I mean, the Pope, the previous Pope with the Laudato Si, absolutely clear, said those people that don't understand climate change, what it might do to us, it's a poverty of imagination. And the current Pope seems to be on the same ticket. If climate change is an issue that needs to be addressed. I think the Orthodox Church because I think they have two heads. One's in Turkey, I think, and one's somewhere else. I can't remember, but they've been quite vocal on this.
Yeah.
And the evangelicals, certainly in Europe, and the Anglicans,
Yep.
particularly, are very keen on this topic. And so you wonder why some of the Americans who are in the main churches don't listen to what their leaders are telling them.
Well,
Some do and some don't. Yeah.
So my approach to this, because this really gets into science communication.
Yeah.
With faith-based groups that I have had the opportunity to talk to, or with theological seminaries, I always start with the human piece. I always connect the human elements of nature first, and really provide the science not as the premise, but as a guide.
Yeah.
So no graph and chart that I can ever give will be as influential as my story, and as this and the collective stories of the audience as well, and that they have a voice too. You don't need a PhD or a master's or any degree to have a say in our common home. And so by weaving the values that many faith-based and spiritual tenets have, I have found that to be a better connection to start the conversation, and then bring the science as, hey, this is our gauge, this is where we are, and this is where we're headed.
So we had on the stage yesterday Catherine Hayhoe.
Yeah.
You know who she is,
Huge inspiration of mine.
Yeah, and also in a strong religion's a strong part of her life. And she's working with somebody called Bernadetta Placchi, I think.
From Climate Central.
Yeah, and there's another one called Laura Schiffler or something like that. Okay. And they're very interested in this. How do we do the comms differently?
Yeah.
And I think they're looking for funding and things like that. But you would be obviously, they want to reach out to more people. I think.
Obviously, absolutely.
So good. Well, look, thank you very much for being with us. I think that the Union of Concerned Scientists, I've known many of their iterations because I used to work for the United Nations and the Framework Convention on Climate Change, and they were always there, always good at fighting the fight, as it were. And probably there's never been a time, certainly in this country, that they've needed the Union of Concerned Scientists more. And I think that we're all very happy about that. And I think also at the same time to know that United States scientists are not alone, right? Europe is also there for you. We're trying to do best. And our campaign is very much trying to support scientists and in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to keep fighting the fight. So
fighting the fight. I'm sure we will, because presidents come and go, but climate change doesn't.
Nope.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, indeed, for being with us.
Thanks so much. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. When nations met at the climate conference, the UN climate conference in Glasgow in the United Kingdom a few years ago, there was a big effort and a lot of pledges made by the maritime sector to actually decarbonize their emissions. And many people put their faith, I think, that they would decarbonize their emissions from shipping through things like hydrogen or possibly alternative synthetic fuels. But quietly, and almost below the radar, another phenomenon has been taking place in the world of shipping, and that is windships. It's unbelievable that many new designs are coming forward, and according to the International Windship Association, which is based in London, we are actually achieving what might be close to exponential growth in the number of ships actually adopting some level of wind power. So I'm very pleased to have with me here at New York Climate Week, Michael Fernandez-Ferry,
yes,
co-founder and managing director of VILA, And Wheeler is actually sort of round the corner from our studio right now. Here is an exhibition, and it is another generation of Windships coming forward. Tell us a little bit about the ship. Tell us about your plans. Tell us about when we will see this Windship on the high seas.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, for having us today. We are very excited to introduce that concept to the Climate Week. The vessel is currently being made, and it will come to New York by November 2026, so coming soon. We started the company about 3 years ago with that mission of cutting carbon emission from international transportation, meaning maritime transportation for sure, but also air freight. Trying to compete with existing solution and bringing to the market a service that would be economically viable for the customers. Because when we talk about impact, we should not forget that we need to bring the value first to the customer for them to switch mode to more sustainable mode of transportation. So this has to be cost efficient, fast, reliable, and of course, sustainable. But sustainability comes as the icing on the cake at the end. So doing so, we build that trimaran design. It's made for speed. Trimaran are by design 40% more fast than an equivalent monohull, but they also bring the stability by design. So this is good for safety for the crew and for the cargo. And that trimaran is made out of aluminium. Aluminium is recyclable. But it's also light.
Yeah, super light. Yeah,
super light. So this is also increasing the quality of service.
Okay, and I presume that, I mean, one of the great things now is people always say wind ships. Yeah, but sometimes the wind doesn't blow. I mean, that's always the thing that you hear, right? And they have no idea that we've got what 50 years of meteorological data. There's GPS, there's satellites, there's all these things that will allow your vessel to track the fastest wind available, the safest wind.
Building a windship company, we have to fight those common ideas that are well deeply rooted in the heritage of sailing transportation, because sailing transportation has been around for thousands of years.
Yeah, the Phoenicians, the Greeks,
exactly. Exactly. And it used to be slow. It used to be not cost efficient. It used to be unreliable. But today, with modern technology, we can achieve what we needed 150 men on board. By the time now we need like less than 10.
Yeah.
It would take about 1 to 3 months to cross the Atlantic. Now we need 15 days. It would be reliable by the months. No, it will be reliable by 2 to 3 days. Meaning that with weather routing algorithm, we are able to predict the wind, to avoid the zone with no wind, and to avoid the storms. That is also the heritage of ocean racing, and we are lucky enough to have as one of the co-founder François Gabard, who's for the American people here, the Michael Jordan of sailing. You can check on him. He basically won all the big races.
Right.
And we are deriving this technology, this algorithm from ocean racing to make a shipping solution viable today.
And so you mentioned that you expect the ship to be built and ready to take cargo in 2026, maybe October next year or September next year, something like that. So that's the kind of pathway you're on at the moment. And do you have already customers lined up? I mean, because you are offering a way, it's now getting boring with the climate stuff, right? But, you know, people have to decarbonize their supply chains, don't they?
Absolutely.
And so if you're shipping something in a ship, you've got this dirty bunker fuel burning, but now you have a different fuel. It's called the wind.
Yes.
So, yeah. So are people lining up? Are they interested?
Yes. I mean, again, there wouldn't be any impact without business.
Yeah.
Business is not a bad thing, right? When we first started the company, the first thing we do was to go talk to shippers, as we call them, potential customers, and ask them, why would it take you to switch from air freight to sail freight or sea freight to sail freight? Tell us. They ask for speed. They ask for reliability.
Mhm.
They ask for safety when they
Mhm.
have high added type of cargo,
Mhm.
meaning pharmaceutical, luxury goods, cosmetics,
Mhm.
industrial parts, wine and spirits,
Mm.
and eventually decarbonization.
Mhm.
But the first thing was to actually bring value to them by bringing a service that would match the
Yeah.
industry standard.
Yeah.
And doing so, we were lucky enough to have on board the first customers. We are here at Climate Week to announce a partnership, major partnership with top pharmaceutical company Takeda,
Mhm.
that is manufacturing medicines out of the US and out of Europe. So actually having flows of goods in both ways,
Right.
from US to Europe and from Europe to the US.
Yeah.
This is just one example of the typical customer that really want to go the extra mile,
Yeah.
decarbonizing the supply chain and switching to a solution that is actually providing a viable transportation for their products.
So you, I presume, will because you're using wind and you're using sails, you can have a massive reduction in the carbon footprint. There are other wind ships out there that are using different kinds of technology, like ones that spin round. These ships are, I think, sometimes even ore ships, metal ores and things like that. So they're not actually 100% wind or 80% wind. There may be 20% wind or 25%. But so wind is basically actually touching all sectors of the shipping business, right?
Yes.
And this is why it's exciting, because it's not known by most people, but there is now a whole ecosystem of different kind of wind ships coming, doing different kinds of jobs. Yeah.
Yes.
So do you think we really are on the edge of something very, very big
Yes.
in terms of a change in the shipping business?
Look, shipping right now is really a guzzling industry, a very, very lively, very bringing a lot of innovation, green innovation. There is wind, there is biofuels, there is hydrogen, there is methanol. And I won't tell you that wind will be the one-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
It will not, for sure. There are such a variety of cases, such a variety of technology that are meeting the specific demand of that specific cases. But we do believe that wind will be one of these solutions. Telling you it will be 20%, 30%, 40% of the cargo, I have no clue. Honestly, that's the crystal ball question, the $1 billion question. We really believe it's going to be significant.
Yeah.
And within wind, you have the whole range of solution from, as you said, assisted propulsion, 10, 20%, 30%.
Kites.
Hybrid kites.
Kites, yeah.
Rigid sails, rotors.
Yeah.
We are using soft sails from the competition, really deriving the best of today's knowledge on sailing for fast sailing transportation.
Yeah.
We are going 100% sailing. This way, we are able to cut emission on the usage by 90% compared to a container ship.
Right.
And a container ship is already cutting by 100x the emission of air freight. So think about it.
Yeah.
Carbon intensity wise, it's like Paris would be 10 kilometers away from New York.
Yeah. 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 That's absolutely amazing. So I think that at the moment, I think the scene is that it's smaller vessels, medium-sized cargo ships, smaller cargo ships, medium-sized. The rest hasn't been one of those big, massive, container ships. But I understand, because I did actually have a conversation with Hapag-Lloyd in Germany some months ago for a show we were doing in London, and they said yes, they are now looking at designs for at least some wind to be fitted to their very big cargo ships. So that really would then start covering all sizes, if I can put it that way. And then, yeah. So tell me just then a little bit more about your ship. So what size of cargo will it be able to carry?
We would be able to carry 600 pallets. We're using the classic wooden pallets you see everywhere, right?
Right.
In trucks, in airplanes, even within containers, sometimes you have pallets. because we avoid having to deal with the empty containers that are today the bottleneck of shipping.
Yes.
And also avoiding the weight of it, because if you're sailing, you know that if you want to have a fast sailing boat, you want it to be light.
Yes.
So we also avoid the weight of the iron box.
Right.
But to your point on the size of the ship, today we built the biggest cargo sailing vessel that we could build 100% sailing.
Right.
Those you were mentioning are using sails as an assistance,
Yeah.
as a hybrid propulsion.
Yes.
We do need them. Like
Yeah.
we're not telling them this is bad. This is
Yeah, yeah.
definitely good for their environment. We need all initiatives, all
Yeah.
good energies.
Yeah.
We're just going the extra mile. And as of today, with current materials, technologies, also infrastructure, because this gigantic mass still need to go below bridges.
Yes. Yes.
This is the biggest size we could build.
Yeah.
We are so sure that in the near future we could increase the size
Right.
more and more.
Right.
And maybe in a few years, in a few decades, you got to see gigantic 100% sailing cargo vessel.
Yeah, yeah. That's really fascinating. So in fact, indeed, it's possible to actually scale this thing up over time. Yeah.
It is, and think about it. As of today, our cargo ship is able to embark 5 times the capacity of an airplane. So for those shippers using air freight today, it is sizable. It is totally able to carry whatever they need to carry.
And lastly, I mean, do you feel that those for the banks and the financiers out there are starting to understand that Windships, whether they're 100% or 90% or whether they're just assisting down at say 20%, that these are actually worth investing in, financing, because in the end, finance is really going to be a key issue going forward. Yeah.
So look, the great thing about wind is not only that it's abundant, available 24/7.
Yep.
But it's free.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell this to your banker. My fuel is free.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're replacing the fuel with more men on
Yep.
board.
Yeah.
We will need 8 people crew, but that makes it economically viable.
Yes.
Obviously, we need the financial partners, and we could not make this possible without them. So we thank the whole ecosystem around us to make it possible. And the good thing is also there is more and more green financing, with incentives for the banks, for the
Yes.
investors to invest into impactful projects
Yes.
like ours.
Yes.
And we need obviously that support to make this happen.
Yeah.
But again, back to my initial point, no impact without business.
Yes.
And as long as you have a business, you can get a funding.
Yeah. Good. I think it's very exciting. There are some of the classification bodies are also getting behind the wind ships, aren't they? The American, can't remember, Bureau of Shipping, I think, and Lloyd's of London, or Lloyd's, Register, I think it is. Yeah. So, I mean, you can see that the whole ecosystem is developing and starting to embrace this as an idea. And I think that's why it's a very exciting time. So, to you, congratulations. We would love to hear about the ship when it's sailing and ready to go again. It's a good story.
Please.
And
Save the date.
Okay.
We'll be here back in New York in November 2026. And
Okay.
you're all invited to join.
Good. And the ship hopefully will be somewhere around here and we can go and see it.
You can't miss it. It's 62 meters
Good.
high.
And being French, there will be lots of champagne, yeah?
Of course. It's on us.
Okay. Good. Thank you so much indeed. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
When you work in the climate communication space and you attend lots of big conferences and events, as We Don't Have Time does, you're bound to hear a common criticism, and that is that, well, we're all getting together to talk about climate change and decarbonization. The event itself is emitting quite a lot of carbon, perhaps also the delegates coming to the event too. Of course, there's a lot we can say in response to that. People do need to meet physically and discuss things face to face. But it is a fair point that we need to actually work very hard to decarbonize events. And if we do carbonize events such as the one we're attending right now, everything would be a lot better. So that is precisely what our next guest, David Boone, the founder and CEO of Virtuous, intends to do, which is to decarbonize these kinds of happenings. Yeah.
Exactly.
David, welcome to We Don't Have Time.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. And so it's I'm very happy to be here in New York at the Climate Week. And this is the place where we officially announcing the operations of the company here in New York at the magnificent Javits Convention Center. So thank you for organizing this talk and to welcome me.
Yes. So, and when are you making the announcement, before we even find out what the announcement is, but have you done it yet, or is it coming, or?
Well, the company exists since 1 year, but the official operations start actually this week.
Okay.
So we're gonna operate the whole platform as from now.
Okay. So can you start off for us in simple terms? So what is Virtuous and how is it going to work on an event like New York Climate Week?
Well, Virtuous is a digital platform. It's a climate action platform for the events industry. And when I talk about events like this, there is about 30,000 B2B events all over the world. So there's a lot of emissions going on. So what can you do on this platform? And again, I said it was a digital platform. So you can actually start your own insetting projects. Okay. And when I say on insetting projects, I mean on site, like the Javits is doing a lot already on their rooftops and with their solar panels and a lot of other projects. So this is on-site projects, but you can also get inspired and you can learn from others. So we offer a library of solutions. So for example, if you say, well, next year I want to reduce my emissions by 50%, you can get inspired by the same kind of project that you had in mind, like an insetting project, and you can get inspired and see, well, when this project was happening in another venue or another show around the world, well, it wasn't reduced by 50%, it was actually 30%. So you can get inspiration about changing your insetting projects to get the 50%, or you just say, I'm going to have to do an additional one to get or to reach 50%. So what we offer is a platform where you can compensate your residuals by high integrity credits, all happening and tracked in a registry. So on the one hand, it is a operating system, but also a financing rail. So we offer solutions because not all of the emissions can be cut by one company or one stakeholder.
Yeah. So when you say that you can go into so it's an app, I suppose. It's an app that you're using, and you can go into the app. Can you see other events that have happened in other parts of the world and what their footprint was or what they did to reduce, like a learning lab of events?
Exactly.
Okay.
You take the words out of my mouth. It's really a learning lab because not every venue or not every organizer around the world is large, and then not all of them, they have their chiefs of sustainability. So you can learn from these other venues who have already been very active in climate change, and you can see how much they reduce. So yes, we give on the platform certificates and data where you can actually see how much they reduce. Now, all of these data are very credible because they are going together with the rules of engagement of the Net Zero Carbon Events 2050 initiative. So during the pandemic, a few years ago, we said in our industry with UFI, the Global Exhibition Association, why don't we start being much more active? Because 2050 is not that far. And according to the climate agreements that were signed in Paris, we said, like, what is our industry going to do? And so therefore, the initiative was taken from the association and we launched the Net Zero Carbon Event Initiative. And so there we said, like, well, if we want to make it credible, we have to make a lot of rules. And
Right.
so when we share data or when we share certificate, they have to apply or comply with those rules.
Yeah.
So to make it all very credible.
Yeah.
And again, what the platform is really forcing users to do or motivating users to do, all of the compensating or all of the offsetting projects, they have to happen on site so that people and all the shareholders who come to an event or a congress or a large exhibition, they can actually see the climate action that you do, especially like they do here in the Javits, where they're very good at.
So I used to work for the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and they are, have these UN climate conferences every year. The next one is in Brazil, in Belém, and they are required under law to actually, in a sense, try and make it the most climate neutral conference they can possibly make. So they have a huge database of climate conferences. Then you see things like Coldplay, the band Coldplay, right? They're always trying to do their concerts. So you suddenly realize that there is all this stuff over there. And yet, and what was so interesting is what you just said right now, that there's actually an initiative of global events people, right, the industry, saying, let's bring it all together. And suddenly it becomes very interesting. It's no longer just somebody doing it here and somebody doing it there and sort of sharing it sort of a little bit, but not really so well. And it's about, creating the ecosystem, isn't it? And the sharing of information as well.
Exactly. And when you say
fascinating.
Yes, and when you say the ecosystem, our industry has a large ecosystem. So we have venues, you have organizers, you have suppliers, you have the exhibitors, and you have the attendees. So yes, there is a whole chain of emissions that are being created, but you cannot just ask one of the shareholders to cut everything. So it's a very collaborative effort that we have to do, and therefore the whole platform is also a very collaborative platform where we can help each other and also finance together these things, because not one company, there are organizers out there who have the financial means to cut everything, but not every organizer or venue can do that. So it's a collaborative effort, and where you can find financing models, how to compensate on the longer run completely. Because don't forget, when the Net Zero Carbon Events Initiative was taken, 2050 is completely neutral. But it means that by 2030, we have to cut 50%.
Exactly.
Now, this is 5 years from now. So we have to do a lot. Now there are organizers and venues who already do a lot. And they have the infrastructure for it, and they have the talent in-house. Not every company has that infrastructure or structure. So therefore, we want to help them by this platform. So as you are a venue or an organizer, you don't want to be talking about sustainability all of the time. You want to do what you do best, and which is running a venue or which is organizing your show. And so therefore, you can use this platform just to say, I want to do this project, and we get the ball rolling. So see it as the Airbnb of climate action projects that you can choose. And again, all happening at the show floor, at the venue.
I remember being at the London Olympics, because again, I was working with the UN and we were helping them with their sustainability. In fact, the UN environment, the Programme National pour l'Environnement, assists every Olympic Games to try and green their footprint, and then produces a report. And so we were working with London, and I remember seeing the buildings and things. And then I was in Paris in 2015, 3 years later, at the Paris Climate Agreement. And I found these metal frames in some of the temporary buildings with the London Olympic stickers on the side. I thought, they've come from London. So there are obviously companies moving around infrastructure rather than using fresh steel or fresh aluminium. They're reusing the aluminium. This is fascinating. I mean,
and that again is, there are a lot of companies out there. So the economy is also changing. There are a lot of smaller businesses like launching their products in a sustainable way and being a supplier to the industry. So you actually see it happening also at this event, but also in the venue that has great sustainable expertise like the Javits here. But you're absolutely right. And more of these companies and startups are going to be launched at events like this, where you can get inspiration on how to use these projects in the future. So there's a lot going on in a positive way.
So last couple of things. So as you rightly point out, in an ideal world, we would be able to be emission free, right? But we can't. There's still fossil fuels in the system, so we need to compensate with high quality certificates, right? So those are going to be high quality ones. That's probably a very important thing, isn't it? Because some people are a bit cynical about some of these certificates, because in the past maybe they weren't so rigorous. But there are good quality ones out there that you can use that are certified by respectable organizations. So that's a key thing, I think.
Yes, very much. So therefore, like I already said, we promote the on-site projects, but there is a lot going on, because in the past somebody told me it's a venue from another part of the world, and said like, well, David, why should I use it? Because I'm already carbon free. And I asked them, well, do you mean you're already carbon free? Well, I just bought the credits. And I said like, well, this is a good thing. And he said like, well, I just bought them. But then I asked the question, are you sure it's really happening? But because what do you do? He said like, I don't know, but I bought them, so I'm okay. So I'm not saying that what they were doing was not right, but it might get criticism from other parts of the world saying like, well, are you really, really sure? So therefore we're saying
the key thing is manage down your emissions as far as you can go, and what's left, you can offset or buy certificates.
And that brings me to one example that I really, really love. Now, there is a lot of debate going on in our industry about scope 3, which is the travel. Now, sometimes it can go up to 85% until 90%. So you can debate about the fact, do we as an industry have to, reduce those emissions or compensate them? Well, we think, the majority thinks yes. So there are certain projects that you can do. And one project that I really, really love is the direct air captivity station. And they're actually also happening already at the Paris Olympic Games. It's actually, these are very expensive installations. So they have to be financed somewhere, but they clean the air at your venue, at your show. Now imagine you can also power this installation by renewable energy, which is great. And on top of that, you got another argument, which is like a lot of venues around the world, they have neighborhood communities who sometimes complain about the fact there are too many events going on, or parking lots that are triggering. But these installations, they can actually clean the air around the venue. So you can say to your neighborhood, well, we create the cleanest air for you. Isn't that great? You can live in a very—
Direct air capture,
And so direct air capture are very expensive installations, but then think about it. You can calculate your travel emissions, and you can compensate them and reduce them and neutralize them via those direct air captivity stations.
Right where the venue is.
Exactly, and then compensate, because these installations, they're long-term. There's not just one show. So there's so many great ideas, and they can. And that inspiration is something that you get via the library of solutions on the platform Virtuous.
And so Virtuous exists. You're going to make this announcement when? Today?
Well, it's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
The last day of the show, and then the operation starts, and then every organizer or venue around the world can use it.
And people can go to what? Virtuous.com.
.events.
.events.
Yes. And so we have, just to tell you, if you ask me, what do I have to do to start using? We already, you can start as you can start now. You can start with small projects, or you can become a Virtuous supporter. Now, we already have 100 signatories. The Javits Convention Center was one of our first, because they're doing already a lot, and they're sustainability.
I have to rush you on this because we're over time now.
And so, but you can become actually also more active by becoming a founding partner of Virtuous. So to really position yourself as an organizer or a venue or as a supplier, as a real climate action leader in our industry. So there's a lot of positioning you can do on the platform.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I wish you all the success with it. It's another area I never thought about.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much
for inviting me.
Okay. Around the world, forward-thinking companies are changing up how they operate, embedding sustainability into their strategies, setting tougher climate targets, and reimagining products and processes to reduce impact. But making these commitments real often comes down to hard work of transforming our factories, our supply chains, and our customer solutions. To learn more about how one such forward-thinking company is taking the lead on this front is SKF. We're joined by Philip Rosengren. He's Director of Sustainability, Quality, and EHS. You might have to tell me what EHS is.
Environmental Health and Safety.
Ah, okay. At SKF. Okay, Philip, very welcome to you. Thanks for being here. Lovely to see you. Okay, let's start with the work of SKF. What you're doing in terms of sustainability internally. And I just think we need to also clarify for the viewers, who is SKF as well?
Well, SKF is one of the world's biggest manufacturer of rolling bearings, ball bearings and rolling bearings, but we also sell and market other products related to lubrication, service, etc.
Right, right. But basically wind turbines going round and round and round.
Wind turbines, trains, everything where you find rotation.
Yeah, okay, good. We've had SKF on the show, but some of the viewers might not have been watching the show before, so we have to ask. So tell us, okay, sustainability internally, you've launched something called Ready to Invest. Can you explain what this is and how it works in practice?
Well, Ready to Invest is a way that we make sure that we only invest in sustainable factories in the future, or for the future. So many of the changes we need to make inside our company they're quite big, and it requires a lot of investment and has consequences for financial performance. So what we did is, and the basic thing is that we need to get rid of gas. That's our main headache, natural gas. We use half of it for heat treatment and the other half for heating our buildings.
Right.
Those investments are large, and even if we assigned a large portion of money, so 500 million Swedish krona per year for 6 years in a row, so 3 billion SEK, that's 300 million euro.
Right.
The investment really didn't start off. There was no strong pull. And of course, it's not so strange. Imagine you're a factory manager running a factory, right? I'm going to chase you on your financial KPIs.
Yeah.
And if you bring on a substantial investment, that will show on your books.
Yeah.
Right? Still, we made a pledge to be ready by 2030 with our decarbonization. So what we now say is that if you are running a factory, you first need to make sure that you have a plan that is actionable and it's being audited by an energy expert that is doable before 2030.
Right.
If you do not, you will not get access to any other investment.
Right.
So you can't buy that new grinding machine that you wanted to buy so much before you show that you have an actionable plan to reach target by 2030.
Right. How many factories have you got around the world?
Around 74 different factories.
Right. Okay. So that's quite a lot. And they're owned by you, or they're
They are owned
franchise?
by us. Yes, they are owned by us.
All right.
A few of them, very few, are joint ventures, but most of them are owned by us.
And in terms of actually decarbonizing a factory, right? I mean, there are solutions, aren't there? There's heat pumps. There's all kinds of heat pumps, for example.
Yeah.
There could be lots of technologies. So. Do you help the factories a bit with the plan?
Oh, yes. I mean, they do, and then they are really passionate about this, and they do really professional work. What we do is have a very slim or concentrated staff of people that help develop methodologies for not only becoming decarbonized, but also becoming energy efficient. It's not okay to just buy more renewable energy. You also need to reduce your energy footprint.
Yes.
And you save money on that. There's a substantial amount of saving. Our best factory in class in France is making double-digit energy efficiency savings 3 years in a row now.
Right.
It's a magnificent achievement. But they're supported by a core team. They do the execution locally in the factory.
Yeah. So they can also become a bit of a poster child for some of the other factories as well.
Absolutely.
You know. And renewable energy, I mean, the commissioner, the EU commissioner was saying at a meeting just 2 days ago here in New York that solar power now is 41% cheaper than the lowest, cheapest fossil fuel.
Yeah.
41% cheaper with solar.
Yeah. We centralized our purchase of renewable energy so that we need to coordinate that so we reach our goals. But we buy a lot of solar and we buy a lot of renewable energy in wind as well. So we've committed to the so-called RE100 target.
And I mean, you've got a science-based target, is that right? So
we're approved science-based target.
An approved science target, yeah. So you have to think about all these different scopes, right? The 1, the 2, and the 3, 3 being the supply chain, yeah. How far are you down the road, do you think, on the science-based target? How is it going?
We're on plan. So this is a normal KPI now, part of any financial or other follow-up. So all factories report every month on what the reduction is in CO2, how they're doing on energy efficiency. So this is what we call operationalized sustainability.
Right.
Just as much as you used to report how much money you made last month or how much scrap you had in production, you now start to have to report on what is your water consumption, what is your energy efficiency index, etc.
And you obviously get some kind of credit for these emission savings, right? I mean,
yeah, that's one area which, I mean, we follow the greenhouse gas protocol on how you calculate that. But one thing which would be a push forward and would really exciting is that if you make a saving for your customer, then it would be interesting to account for that as well. What you typically call scope 4 or avoided emissions.
Yes.
If that could be made part of a carbon balance, that would mean a large step forward for sustainability acceleration.
Yes. I know that the scope 4 is talked about, isn't it? And people have been debating it quite a bit. Do you think it's reaching any maturity to say that it could be counted? I mean, do you think
there is a good proposal from the greenhouse gas protocol organization on how to deal with it? So then, of course, there are a lot of details to be worked out so that you cannot hide greenwashing inside, etc. Needs to be, but in my opinion, it would be doable. And I think it would be a good thing to do as well.
Maybe there's somebody can lobby for that among the governments at the next UN climate conference in Belém. That would be the thing to go,
We'll try.
Recod oil.
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because I don't even know what that means.
It's a wonderful invention.
Okay.
It's one of the things where you can see that the real savings for sustainability is actually not scope 1 and 2. Those are important and we need to do them. But the real savings on a global scale will happen downstream for almost all industrial companies. So that means that you have to help your customers to reduce their impact. And Recond Oil will do just that. It's a fantastic patented innovation that we sell in SKF and own. It makes it possible to filter and treat oil so that you never have industrial oil. You never have to change it again.
So it's okay. So why? Okay, you need the oil because with bearings you need oil.
No, it's not related so much to bearings. Of course, bearings use, but you use oil in most industrial activities. Just think about hydraulic oil. Or oil used in machining or metal working. If you make steel wire, right? You pull steel wire through a hole to make it thinner, right? Requires an enormous amount of oil to pour on that wire, not to become too hot or destroyed.
Right.
It used to be that oil, after 3 months of use, you had to basically put it to landfill or deposit it. It's so toxic, so bad, you can't do anything with it. We've implemented solutions for customers now who used to change that oil every 3 months, and they don't ever change the oil ever again. So you can continuously, it's not only a filtering process, you also rejuvenate the oil with more additives and things like that as you go. But it basically puts a circular economy to the use of industrial oil.
Right. So I had never heard of that. So that's really amazing. And that's an SKF invention or?
Yes, it's a patented invention.
Right. That's incredible. That's incredible. What is there any other things in the pipeline in terms of sustainability from your company?
There are many things you can do downstream and really make an impact on the CO2 footprint of our planet. Heat pumps you mentioned before. I mean, most people know heat pumps from their home, maybe that they have one. What many people don't know is that there's now a generation, what we call industrial heat pumps, that can reach heat levels that are usable for industry. I mean, you can generate steam with it, you can get to really high temperatures. Problem is that if you push a heat pump that hard, you will get performance issues. Also, maybe you want to use more environmentally friendly refrigerants, right? That is also a challenge to the operation and the bearings inside the heat pump. We solve that by, for example, introducing bearings with ceramic rolling elements, so ceramic balls, for example, or we go to the really high-tech solutions of a magnetic bearing that has basically virtually no friction at all. And if you implement these solutions with heat pumps, I mean, you can get to energy efficiency gains in the order of 60, sometimes 80% higher energy efficiency. There are a lot of data centers being built now. And if you have a need for heat from a data center, you can use heat pumps to bring back that. There is actually a city in Denmark that is powered by a data center using heat pumps.
It's about making the connections, isn't it? And in a sense, realizing that sometimes the answer to what you need is not within, but outside your business. And actually, you may have something that they need, right, which they didn't know about before. And trying to actually communicate this is kind of, well, I suppose events like New York Climate Week are places where some people pick up new ideas, right? But there's no systemized way, I don't think, of really getting that message out. Interesting on the industrial heat pumps, because there's a European Union project under the Horizon Science Project called SUSHEAT, and they've got a heat pump now that can go from ice cold water up to, I think, 250, 300 degrees centigrade.
It's enormous. You can get out of an industrial heat pump.
Oh my God.
But imagine, I mean, that is also where you start building customer value and commercialize sustainability. Once you push the envelope of a given machine, you will always run into industrial problem. And then you need to work with your supplier to solve it. Once you solve it, people are willing to pay for it. That's how you commercialize sustainability.
I'm wondering whether we might be just coming to the end of this slot. I want to say thanks very much for being on the show. And we got to know about SKF's work just like within the last 12 months, right? At the beginning, I was like, ball bearings, you know, and suddenly you realize ball bearings are really quite fascinating.
They're everywhere.
And they're everywhere. I mean, it's really cool. Okay, but thank you very much for talking to us about what you're doing.
Nice to be here.
Great.
I can't stay in my fit. What I'm gonna do if I really want to? But you know, baby, break my mind in two. Will you have the key? So open my heart, please, my heart, please. Tell me that I'm beautiful, till can't oblige. Well, I like so hot. I'm more what you got. I'm more what you got.
We're here in New York, and you've got a concert this evening. You're playing in New York. Where are you doing this? Where's it happening?
I'm playing at the Midnight Theater in Hudson Yards, and I'm singing some jazz tonight.
Okay, how cool. How cool. So we got to know each other through your previous album, but let's first talk about your new album. It's called Mycelium.
Yes.
Some of our audience might go, Mycelium, what's that? Is that a Roman emperor? But tell us a little bit about this album. What's it about? What you're trying to achieve?
So Mycelium is the root network of fungi, and we can't really see them with our bare eyes, but they just connect the entire web underneath the ground. And when I learned about this, it made me really think about interconnectedness, and that's kind of what the whole album is really about. It's about the interconnectedness between people and obviously between our planet, because if there's a dead planet, there's no people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And yeah, you're quite right. I mean, I think some people have got really excited about, you know, fungi, which of course is mycelium as well.
Yeah.
Even my daughter now gets very excited in September. She wants to go out picking mushrooms and things like that. And, you know, there are some parts of the world where it's really a big tradition. But people don't understand that that's just a little bit that you're seeing, isn't it? The rest of it's really all underground.
Exactly. The mushroom is just a fruit.
Yeah, yeah. And quite rightly that, yes, they are part of the ecosystem, that if we damage it at our peril, and, you know, revealing in a sense through science, but through music, to make people aware that this earth is so fascinating and so interconnected, and you throw out one bit of the interconnectivity and you in danger of the whole thing collapsing. And I think
exactly.
That's,
Yeah. But also what inspired me to learn about it was that in 2022, I was asked to go out on a research vessel in the North Pacific with 25 plankton scientists. So I was out on this research vessel with them for 2 weeks, and I learned about plankton, and I'd never been exposed to plankton before. I knew what it was, kind of, but I really didn't know. I didn't know that plankton was everything that drifts. So even massive jellyfish are plankton. But anyway, just working with the scientists and looking through microscopes and seeing these incredible microscopic organisms and how beautiful they are and how cool they are, like all the things that they can do, and how important they are to our ecosystem, that really made me fascinated about microorganisms, and that made me interested in also learning about other types of microorganisms. So that's why I ended up with fungi and mycelium. So I went back to Oregon in 2023 and worked with the same group of plankton scientists and mycologists.
Okay.
And then based on all this research, together with trumpeter and composer Danny Janakuchi and visual designer Nichat Dotong, we've created this interdisciplinary suite where everything is based on the research that we've learned from scientists firsthand.
On your previous album, you sampled data to form a basis, in a sense, to inspire the songs that you delivered. Is there any of that going on in this mycelium album?
Yes, there's some of that going on. I found this mycelium growth equation. It's literally a crazy mathematical equation. And I found some ways of translating it into different musical concepts for, like, okay, this stands for minor or major, this stands for the time signature, this stands for this type of scale, this stands for the interval, and together it just created this really difficult composition that we all needed to play.
Wow.
Everyone in the band was not happy about that
yes,
one.
I can imagine. What has Serendip got us into? Yeah, exactly. So I remember years ago when I was a journalist on the Times newspaper in London, writing an article which was that scientists had discovered the biggest organism on Earth. And it was a mycelium, I think in Michigan.
In Oregon, actually.
It's in Oregon, you're absolutely right. And it's underground, and it just stretches miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, and nobody can see it. It's kind of like really...
Yeah.
It's slightly freaky, and it's slightly kind of just intriguing. And what do they think, and what do they do? And, you know, maybe they don't think, maybe they do. I don't know what mycelium get up to, but...
They can do a lot of things, and especially, you know, there are so many species, both for plankton and for fungi, that are still undiscovered. Scientists are finding new species every day, and for me to be on the research vessel in 2022 and having the scientists, like, you know, throw the nets into the water, not knowing what would come up, and then something would come up and they're like, we actually don't know what this is.
Yeah.
You know, even in 2022 at the time of like, there's still so many organisms that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So specifically with fungi, one of my coolest fungi that have inspired me is cordyceps, and you might have heard about them from a TV show.
No, tell me.
I think it's called The Last of Us.
The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's this type of fungi that infects the brain.
Ah, okay.
And it makes insects, mostly ants,
right,
go and infect other ants and then commit suicide.
Right, okay, that's right, the dark side of mycelium.
So
if you're an ant. Yeah.
Exactly. So we wrote a song called Cordyceps, inspired by that, but then we kind of looked at it from the lens of corporate greed and how, you know, our society is built on this. Everyone strives for this thing, and we think that we're all doing it from our own free will, but it's actually these puppet masters, you know, infecting our brains and making us do things that might not be that great for us.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. Because we've talked about this before, because if you write a climate song or you write a song about nature or something, if you spell it out in black and white, everybody turns off. You have to be more nimble and subtle and not kind of hit people with a sledgehammer on the theme. It's got to be something that they kind of grow into and almost kind of get. You don't even often, you can't mention the word climate change in a song. It switches people off straight away, and it's a strange phenomenon. And when will Mycelium come out? Do you hope?
In 2025.
Okay.
So we're going to be recording some of it this fall and some of it early next year, and then it will come out after that.
All right.
But you're totally right, and actually what I'm experimenting with Mycelium is to not use the word climate change and to use the word like nature and try to come from more of a inspiring perspective to see if there's more people, we can get more listeners and more people are interested rather than that immediate like, oh my God, the word climate, okay, I'm not going to listen to this, I'm not going to give it a chance, I'm not going to, you know, there's so much of that specifically in the music world or just the general public. And our issues are so urgent that we just need for everyone to get on board.
Although it's really possible, isn't it? I mean, because there have been people who've written about the sort of state of the planet in songs. I mean, the one that many people may know, you know, the Marvin Gaye song "Mercy, Mercy Me," right? The ocean's full of mercury and birds not flying in the sky and things like that. And you can't say that isn't a popular song, you know. So it can be done, right? But it's clearly complex, and maybe in those days people maybe didn't quite fully understand what he was talking about as well. Maybe people now are a bit more aware and they don't want to know about it because it's too scary to imagine. But let's go back to your previous album, because that's the one where certainly we got to know each other, and it was so special to see this album Carbon come out, and all the tracks having some relationship with the climate change story. And it is a special album because some of the tracks are quite instant to get into. Others do require you to do what we always used to do in the past with albums, which is spend a bit of time with the track. You know, and that is a challenge as well in the modern era of sort of sampling and Spotify and things like that. It's like if they don't get it straight away, it's like, no, next one, click. You know. But you also had an experience with media on this one that was interesting to explore. And tell us about that. How did media respond to this album, because it was about climate change?
I ran into the issue quite often, and I think that it might have also been the timing that my album came out by the end of 2022, so it was kind of at the end of COVID, and the music industry during COVID was really struggling. So, like we've discussed, climate change is such a polarizing topic. So I received a lot of great feedback from critics that they loved my album, but then they would, and also from festivals and venues, but then they wouldn't necessarily want to write about it because it would be polarizing for their audience.
Right. It's kind of interesting that I was sitting, I think this is not just an American phenomenon, but particularly an American phenomenon, because we had an event the other day on the live show where doctors were talking about climate and health, and what they didn't do was they never talked about air pollution, what actually causes it, because air pollution is caused by the burning of fossil fuels, leading to pollution in the cities and people getting strokes and all kinds of other things. But they kept referring to climate and health and distancing themselves from the elephant in the room, which is the fossil fuels. And when I talked to one, they said, well, we don't want to upset anybody by actually calling out what's doing it.
So the album Carbon was based on the causes and effects of climate change. And when I was doing research on different topics and finding ways of turning it into music,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I wanted to learn more about was renewable energy and what types of renewable energy sources were out there,
Mm-hmm.
more than the common ones that everyone knows about, like solar and wind.
Mm-hmm.
So I found hydrogen,
Mm-hmm.
and specifically green hydrogen, and then I thought it was very interesting to think about hydrogen being the most common element in the universe, but it always wants to bind with another element. So that's kind of the lyrics, is personifying hydrogen and like, oh, I'm the king of the world, but please don't let me be alone.
Yeah, right. And also, we'd like hydrogen to bind much more with our economies so that we can get off fossil fuels, which
Yes.
is a nice concept
The
as well.
potential is really, really, really inspiring.
Yeah. When you play with other musicians, these kinds of tracks, does it have an influence on them? Because it's quite interesting, the concept of influencing the music industry. I mean, you're saying with Mycelium, we're like, oh my God, what have we got ourselves into? But do they kind of get it after a while? Do they understand the climate message that's coming out, and do they feel it a bit?
Yes, I noticed that more of my musician friends are, being more vegetarian, vegan around me,
Mm-hmm.
and think more about their carbon footprint.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, when I have tours, I send green riders to the venues
Mm-hmm.
to try to eliminate single-use plastic and those
Right.
types of things, and more vegan and vegetarian food. Like, you can only do so much,
Yeah.
but I try to like share it with the musicians I work with
Mhm.
and the venues
Mm-hmm.
that I work with.
Yeah. I think that's very important to be shown to be doing, because I mean, the album as well was made from bioplastic, wasn't it? Which was, I know it's an early stage in bioplastic and it was quite pricey to have it done, but
Yes.
that really is walking the talk, yeah?
And we also record the album in a solar-powered studio.
Yeah, that's also true, yeah. So maybe we've got a chance now to actually listen to the hydrogen track here in the car, which would be really super. So we can cue it and let's go.
Yeah.
It's got a great bass. Are they real? These are real drums?
Yes.
When the silence comes to fall. You got a much
Throw
better
my
voice.
head against the wall. Why on earth would I refuse it? Did I lose it? You're playing the air drums. Lose it all. Silence is not my friend when the heat is on. All I know is how to pretend I can rule the universe. I know, you know.
Great.
I am all around you. I know, you know. So it's that, king of the universe.
yeah,
Please don't let me be alone.
Yeah,
feeling.
it's really clever. It's really clever.
The most common element in the universe.
Yeah, great. And we know that, I mean, as they say, we were going to be in a hydrogen car. We're in an electric car right now, but the big car companies seem to be now totally dedicated towards cleaner fuels, and hydrogen is a good idea because not everybody can find charging points where they want to find them right now. And if you've got hydrogen as an alternative, not an alternative, as a supplementary fuel for a car, then people in rural areas, for example, could just fill up in, I hate to use the word petrol station, but maybe there'll just be hydrogen stations soon, and then they can be on their way, right?
And it would just take a few minutes too.
Yeah, it's such, I mean, we need to get everything in play if we're going to deal with this problem, because it's so urgent right now.
Yeah, I think we just need to inspire everyone to do something.
Yeah.
Rather than talk about exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think that, to be climate friendly or to care about sustainability, there's a checklist of the things that you need to do, and there's only those things.
Yeah.
But there's so many more things that one can do.
Yeah. So we had a psychologist on the show yesterday. We were talking about the electric vehicles, not hydrogen ones at the time, but Norway has like nearly 100% electric vehicles.
Wow.
And asked how it worked. This professor from a business school in Norway said they used envy. So they allowed all the electric cars to go in the bus lane. And all the people, he said, in the gas-guzzling cars were looking in envy at the electric cars in the bus lane. And they all started switching to electric cars.
Yeah.
So sometimes there are all kinds of human psychological tactics.
Yeah,
you
or
need.
the tax incentives.
Yeah.
Helps too. Well, one of the things that for carbon, I was not very much on the nose, but more on the nose that whenever I had an interview or talked about the album, I would always say it's based on the costs and effects of climate change. And every topic was based on that very clearly, versus now with mycelium, what I'm trying to do after working with scientists of like, how can artists help amplify scientific communication? Then they would say, try to tell the emotional truth. So we've been working on this mycelium suite of telling the emotional truth of plankton, of fungi, and of science to try to connect on a deeper level with people, rather than just throwing data points and a lot of information of just trying to dig deeper in the heart, because I think that if we get to the heart, we can get to the action.
Yes.
I can't stay in my fit. What I'm gonna do if I really want to, but baby, break.
So we just saw a fantastic pre-recorded show with Sirintip, the Asian Swedish, sorry, should I say Thai Swedish singer and songwriter, who is really unbelievable. And we were chatting to her in Cars, in Conversation, or Conversation in Cars, taking place here in New York last year during New York Climate Week. But now I have another wonderful guest, and we'll come to him in 2 seconds. This year, of course, is the 10th anniversary of the landmark Paris Climate Agreement. And the deadline for the UNFCCC signatories to turn up and update their national determined contributions. It's a very important moment in the whole story of climate change, and everyone is looking to the next climate conference happening in Brazil later in this year in Belém, COP30, and hoping that all governments will have put down their new raised ambition plans. But it doesn't stop in Belém, right? The COP goes somewhere else afterwards. And right now, there's a debate between whether it goes to Turkey or whether it goes to Australia. We're very lucky to have with us on the show Ilya Horides,
Yes.
Who is the Director of City Projects with the City of Adelaide, Australia. And if Adelaide wins it, then, sorry, if Australia wins it, Adelaide is the city where it's going to happen. Okay, great. Ilya, so to start off, just tell us a little bit about this issue. There will be some decision made at some moment, whether it's Adelaide or whether it's a city in Turkey that will be the host. Tell us what's going on there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Nick, and hello to your viewers. At the moment, the discussion is live. Our Prime Minister Albanese, is here in New York, both for the UN General Assembly and for Climate Week. Our Environment Minister, Minister Bowen, also here. Our Lord Mayor, provincial leads in our state governments, all talking with Turkey and with other nations about the proposition Australia.
Right.
We know that it's a consensus process, which is fascinating. It's not a vote. So it does depend on one of the nations saying you can take COP31.
Right.
And but we think our credentials are strong. We've had great engagement with the global community while we're here.
Yeah.
We don't know if it'll be resolved this week. I know that that's the ambition.
Yeah.
But stay tuned, because I know that the Prime Minister and all of the team is working hard on that issue.
Right. And I was remember in the past with the choice of the nation hosting, it was always based on regional, so there was like there's the West European group, I think, and the East European group, and the North American group, and it kind of moved around different places. Asia Pacific is one group, isn't it? Fiji was the host in 2017, I think, when it was then actually happened in Bonn, but because Fiji couldn't afford it. Where does Turkey fit in? Turkey's not Asia Pacific, is it?
No, it is an oddity that we do happen to be in a group that picks up Australia and the Pacific, but also Turkey as a Western European region. That's a question for the UN, how they group the countries.
I don't know. Yes,
but we are technically in the same group.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, let's move on, and we'll wait for that decision. But if Adelaide gets the nod because Australia's got the nod, are you ready to demonstrate that you as a city are really number one, the best possible that we could ever dream of? What sustainability do you have right now? What are you achieving, and how good is it? Yeah.
Thanks, Nick. I will just say before I jump into that, the COP will be an Australia Pacific COP. So that is the bid.
Right.
But we have to pick a host city. And in that context, it would be Adelaide.
Yeah.
To your point on why Adelaide, what credentials do we have? I think the big headline about Adelaide is the incredible work that's been done around transition to an entirely green power grid.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, and it's probably a quiet story, one we don't beat our chests about too much, we're in excess of 70% of all of the power generated in our state being renewable.
Right.
And the city of Adelaide, so effectively the capital city and its function, runs 100% off of green power.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's worth pausing on that for a second.
So what is it? Is it solar? Is it wind? Is it biogas? Is it...
No, so solar is an enormous part of the project.
Yeah.
And as is wind.
Yeah.
So if any of people are familiar with Australia, bunch of coastal cities, an enormous desert in the centre, tropical forests to the north.
Mm-hmm.
So we play to our strengths. And for Adelaide, a really dry climate, a Mediterranean climate, it's solar power and wind. We also, at the time, I'd need to fact check this, but as at today, but at the time, the world's largest battery as well, to basically manage peak and off-peak load with all of the additional power that we're generating. And some of the biggest uptake globally of rooftop solar in homes.
Right.
So the community are part of the solution. It's not just a government-driven outcome.
It sounds like a dream city, because I mean, that's exactly how everybody wants solar to be. It's the decentralization of power and things like that. Everyone has a say in the energy system, and I mean, it's absolutely tremendous. I mean, it's amazing when being here in the States, what's going on here. But I heard the head of the European Commission just the other day saying that, and I knew it was a good numbers, that now solar is 41% cheaper than the nearest fossil fuel.
Yeah.
That could ever be near it, if it could be, but it can't, because it isn't, because it's 41% cheaper with solar. It's an incredible story. Okay, so that's on the energy front. That's amazing.
Yes.
Transportation, how's that going?
So transportation, again, probably aligned to the energy story.
Right.
The uptake of electric vehicles and the transition to vehicles powered by electricity has been enormous, because the infrastructure and the capacity of the grid is there. So it kind of lets people match decisions.
Yeah.
It's fair to say, Nick, that we drive big distances in Australia. So to not sugarcoat everything in this discussion, of course, there's the transition to electric, and people being concerned about range and range anxiety and those things is a concern. And we are big sprawled cities, so transport does matter.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of work that we're doing in the planning for that, and to strengthen the transition, strengthen public transport. But that's an area that I'd say we are on the way with work to do, and looking at jurisdictions who are doing it well, typically denser populations, not as sprawled as we are. But that's certainly an area of focus, because we know that that's a big driver of emissions.
Right. So, I mean, transport is always, as we were saying, even before we started the show, a big problem in most cities. Even some of the greenest cities in Europe, have this problem with transport. Yeah, the EVs are going faster through the system, but I suppose there's opportunities for, I don't know, rapid bus transit systems or trams or other things like that. Do you have a metro in Adelaide?
No, not in Adelaide. So Adelaide's a city of a little shy of 1.5 million people over a massive geography.
Yeah.
Some 100 kilometres in length. And so there are straight economics on the financial side, kind of the fiscal side of those equations. Melbourne is implementing a metro system at the moment. Sydney has an established one. Brisbane, of course, is preparing for the Olympics. So when you do the rounds of Australian cities, and to make this a broader conversation, because there are some other things I'd love to talk about that
Yeah.
Adelaide's doing. Transport is enormous for a continent like ours.
Right. Okay, so so every country is different and every city is different, and everyone has different challenges based on the realities of the place that one's in. I suppose cooling is a interesting subject. So tell us a bit about that, because that's becoming an even more interesting topic as time goes by.
Yeah, it really is. And so some work that we've done that we're really proud of is mapping the city from a heat perspective, and then being really direct about our actions. So a massive urban greening program, an initiative that began being called Cool Routes. So places that people can get to on foot, through active transport, bikes, e-bikes, etc., that have canopy, that have substantial canopy. We also have, it's funny being in New York, the line I've been using here is we're in a city surrounding a park. Adelaide is a city surrounded by park.
Right, okay.
So all four walls of the CBD of our city is parkland, 760 hectares of green parkland, and we're trying to get that through our urban corridors as well. We can track the impacts on the street, some classics from Australia. You could crack an egg and fry it on some of our roads, given the heat we have. And we don't want that to be the case anymore.
No, exactly.
So we've got a really expansive program dealing with that.
Particularly, is that tree planting?
Tree planting, which, as simple as it sounds, is really hard in the urban realm. There's services, there's issues. You don't want to impact transport. We want to introduce more bike routes. So we're being really strategic about that. And that's happening live as we speak back at home. And so that's trees in the hundreds throughout both the urban network and our parklands network.
And out of curiosity, I mean, Adelaide have enough space to house 50,000 people dropping in for 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's on the organisation front. We are planning like we have it because we have to. The responsible thing to do is to be ready to welcome the world. And if we get a decision that is not this time, then we take all of the work we've done and we keep applying it to climate outcomes and event outcomes. If we do, it means we're ahead. So if we do get the nod, then we're preparing. From an accommodation perspective, we've got plenty of spots for people. It will use all of our network, that's for sure, as a city of our size. And we're also conscious that we probably have commutes that we think are long, but for people from around the world, they'll think they're very generous. You're used to commuting 45 minutes to an hour, you're probably doing 15 to 30 minutes in Adelaide. So the locals probably think some of the accommodation is a bit far out. They wouldn't stay there. But for our visitors, really simple. We're a grid city, very easy to navigate, very flat.
And it should mean that most of those places are accessible by some form of public transport.
Correct. And we're also looking at how we can showcase where we want to move to by bringing some of that forward.
Okay. Good. Well, thank you very much indeed for sharing a little glimpse into Adelaide. I think that's really, really wonderful. And 100% green energy is like a dream come true, I think, for anybody that cares about climate change. So really big congratulations on that. And
thank you.
Transport, let's see. If Adelaide gets a nod, you never know. Might get some federal funding for something amazing. Who knows?
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
I can't stay in my fit. What I'm gonna do if I really want to, but you know, baby, break my mind into. Will you have the key? So open my heart, please, my heart, please. Tell me that I'm beautiful till can't abuse. Well, I like so hot. I'm more what you got. I'm more what you got.
So I'm really pleased to have Jürgen Guldner. Have I?
Yeah, that's pretty close.
It's not bad. Yeah. Okay. Great. General Program Manager of Hydrogen Technologies for BMW in the back of an electric car.
Yes.
We were hoping to be in a hydrogen, but the hydrogen car is quite busy today with other jobs. But we're here to talk about hydrogen. And
this is a beautiful car anyway, right?
It is a beautiful car as well. It's very beautiful. I don't personally actually own a car living in Berlin because I can get around without one.
Yeah.
But from time to time, I do need a car. So I rent one. But Jürgen, hydrogen, I mean, has been talked about for many, many, many years. There's always been moments, I remember, in the last, say, 15, 20 years where hydrogen popped up and then it sort of popped down again. But do you think we're actually seeing a kind of renaissance of the momentum to actually go for hydrogen land transport?
Yes, I actually think so, because there has been a very steady growth of a hydrogen economy over the last, let's say, 4 years. It all started with the report that the International Energy Agency wrote for the G20 summit in Japan in 2019. And there the role of hydrogen as part of the energy transition was described. And since then there has been a growing number of projects for hydrogen, hydrogen production, hydrogen distribution, and hydrogen application, hydrogen usage in all kinds of fields. And I think this was the kind of the tipping point. And since then, we see a lot of projects coming up. Of course, those large-scale projects take a while to really, become into life and start actually producing hydrogen, for example. But that definitely was the starting point.
And tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, are you an engineer? Are you a scientist? What's your background?
I'm actually an electrical engineer.
Electrical engineer, yes. Okay. Because the BMW hydrogen vehicles have a fuel cell, yeah?
Yes, they're fuel cell vehicles.
Splits something into hydrogen and something.
No, it's actually the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah. We have, well, first off, a hydrogen vehicle is an electric car.
Yeah.
It's driven by actually the same electric motors that our electric vehicles use as well. The energy in the car is stored as hydrogen and not as electricity. Like here in this car, we have the energy in the battery. In a hydrogen car, the energy is stored as hydrogen in hydrogen tanks. They have 700 bar. It's a worldwide standard. That's the nice thing. We can fuel up our vehicles of the pilot fleet everywhere in the world with the same nozzle. And this hydrogen in the tank then meets with oxygen in the fuel cell. The oxygen comes in from the outside air. We have a compressor that pulls in air, and there a chemical reaction happens in a controlled manner. And hydrogen plus oxygen makes energy, releases energy, and makes water.
Yeah, H2O.
And H2O, right? And that goes out with the remaining air as water vapor. And that's the beauty of it, because you don't have any local emissions, because the only exhaust, so to speak, is water vapor.
That's interesting. So basically, it's an electric car powered by hydrogen rather than by electrons from a battery.
Correct.
And so does it mean that if I was buying a hydrogen car in the future, if I could afford it, but if I wanted to, that I would be pretty much, it's the same structure under the, I mean, I know there's differences, but it's basically the same drivetrain, and are there differences in it? I know there are some differences, like the fuel cell,
right?
But if it's still a kind of electric car, it means a company like BMW is not having to make a completely different vehicle.
Exactly. Yeah. We see battery electric cars and hydrogen fuel cell electric cars as a complementary to each other, and we would like to put them on the same architecture. And then we're flexible in production as well, and either make a battery electric car or a fuel cell electric car out of it. And the beauty of it is the car drives like any other electric car. The great acceleration that we now have gotten used to with electric cars, the silent ride. You don't hear anything. It's emission-free because, as I said, only water vapor is the exhaust. But a hydrogen car can be refueled like a combustion engine car today.
Yeah, you just go to the tank Stella, to the petrol station, and it's hydrogen, not petrol. Sort of thing.
Exactly, and it takes just 3 to 4 minutes to fuel up, and you're 100% full, and you can go again. So you have the combination of the best of both worlds: electric driving capabilities, zero emission, plus the capability to use the car like people have used combustion engine cars for more than 100 years now.
So again, a little bit more about you. Are you from Bavaria, or where are you from?
Yeah, I'm actually from Bavaria. Yes.
Okay.
I've been with BMW for more than 25 years now.
Wow.
With different jobs, always kind of with advanced technologies, kind of at the forefront of innovation. And you probably know BMW as a leader in innovation and technology, but we are actually also a leader in sustainability. We have worked decades already on electrification, on battery electric cars, but also on hydrogen in parallel, because we really see the two technologies not as competition, but as complementary technologies.
And where did you study? Where were you? Where did you do your education, your university or whatever?
I started at the Technical University in Munich in electrical engineering, but then I came to the United States actually. Have a master's from Clemson University in South Carolina.
Right.
I can speak Southern if you like.
Oh God, then we're really taking this into a comedy show. I could speak in my northern, Northern England accent, which nobody would understand because it's a bit weird.
But it's difficult for me in New York to speak Southern. I must admit. Then I went back to Germany, got my PhD again at the Technical University in Munich, and then I came back to the States actually. University of California at Berkeley. I did a postdoc there back then at automated driving, and that was almost 30 years ago. And since then, a lot of things have happened in the automotive industry. And after that, I joined BMW, first in the innovation and advanced research department, and had various positions both in chassis and in powertrain.
Well, my Bachelor of Science degree from the University of St Andrews in Scotland now looks like not really a very great success after hearing all that.
Well, it's just titles, but you learn a lot in those things. And I think what was most important and most valuable was actually the cultural experience, and not so much the technical experience, but meeting a lot of people from different cultures, especially at universities here in the States. You meet people from all over the world, and that really is eye-opening. And I've been a world citizen ever since.
So, getting back then to the hydrogen vehicles, is there a hydrogen-powered BMW you can buy today, or is it
not
coming?
Yet? No, it's not yet. It's coming in 2028. We just announced that we will have our first hydrogen model. We're basically following the same steps that we did with battery electric cars. Right there, we had a pilot fleet of electrical minis back in the days. You might remember that. Now we have a pilot fleet with the hydrogen vehicles, and we just saw one of the cars there. They're all over the world, actually, the whole fleet at the moment. And with that, we decided to go with our first production model in 2028. That is kind of equivalent to our i3 that came out in late 2013 as the first BMW battery electric vehicle. And since then, in the battery electric field, we have rolled out battery electric powertrains in basically all our models. Nowadays, we have the full flexibility. You can get a gasoline car, a diesel car, a plug-in hybrid, or a battery electric powertrain in almost each model or all model lines at BMW.
So, I mean, with the electric car, sometimes people, maybe quite wrongly, in many so-called developed countries, Europe and the U.S.A, still some people are a little bit cautious because they're worried about, range anxiety, aren't they? Is this electric car just going to stop going because I haven't found a charging point or something? And I know that, again, from the debate had we yesterday, that a lot of people said that's really a bit of a myth, What do you need to do to make the hydrogen car work? You clearly need places where you can fill up with hydrogen,
right.
In Germany, in France, UK, wherever your markets are. Is that infrastructure starting to roll out, or how is that developing?
Yes, it is. Yeah. It has started to roll out. It will be a combination of commercial vehicles and private used cars, because an infrastructure obviously needs offtake. So we see infrastructure in Germany, in France, in other European countries, also here in the US, mainly in California actually. and we think it will come in the next few years for commercial vehicles, for the trucks and lorries, the buses and coaches, light-duty vehicles. There's some manufacturers that offer that, and then the private use cars will be able to tag on to that infrastructure, because obviously you need the fueling stations that sell hydrogen to be able to use a hydrogen car. In Europe, we have a regulation from the European Union. It's called the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Regulation, where it actually prescribes that a dual infrastructure, electric charging and hydrogen fueling stations, will be mandatory in all European states until 2030 with a base network, right? To basically cover your travel needs, so to speak. And for us, this dual strategy was, the focus on battery electric cars, but also having hydrogen as an add-on technology is mainly focused on the customer needs, because there are some people who would like to have a zero-emission car, but maybe have trouble using a battery electric car.
Yes.
Many people love our battery electric cars, don't get me wrong. And
so people in rural areas, for example, maybe.
In rural areas and in cities, because just look around here in New York. It'll be difficult to have electric charging for each and every parking spot here, right? And electric car, it's easiest to use it if you can charge it at home or at work. If you have to go public charging all the time, it can become a little bit tedious if you use the car a lot. Also, people who travel a lot, people who are on the road a lot, they tell us that, even if you get down to like 15-20 minutes charging times, it's still too much. We want something that we are used to, like the combustion engine car, go to gas station 100% full in 3 to 4 minutes and keep going. And for this, customer base or this customer type use case, we're developing the hydrogen as well as an add-on to the battery electric vehicles.
Is there, there has been some debate with the hydrogen story, that particularly with green hydrogen, that some people say the hydrogen should be used for the super hard to abate sectors, like steel and cement, shipping, this kind of thing. Do you fear there could be some tension in the early years about who gets the green hydrogen, because of course we're still growing the renewable energy infrastructure? Is that an issue, a debating point, a question, a political decision? I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I think that the whole energy transition can only work if it works in an economical way. So we always have to look at the economics of things. And there, when we look at hydrogen applications and which application kind of can pay what price, the transport sector is actually one of those sectors that can pay a higher price than, for example, the steel industry, just comparing to what you're replacing, right? If you're replacing diesel with hydrogen, you have a different price point, what people are used to, versus steel, where you replace coal or natural gas today. And on the reverse side of things, the steel industry needs much larger quantities of hydrogen versus the transport sector. So having the transport sector kind of as a catalyst to start off the hydrogen economy, with smaller production, maybe more localized production sites that can pay higher prices in the beginning, is actually a good thing to get the whole thing started, because for a steel plant to go to hydrogen, a huge hydrogen production plant from the very beginning, because there's only, you can convert one furnace after another, but you need to start with something big already at a very low price. And usually with a new technology, you start with lower volumes and higher prices. So I think the transport sector can actually help grow the hydrogen economy, which we need for the energy transition as such. And at the end of the day, the amount of hydrogen that's required for the transport sector, and then when you look at the personal private use passenger vehicles, is so small compared to the large volume that I think from an economical point of view, there always will be hydrogen available for the transport sector as well.
Okay, good point. Yeah, it's interesting. I always feel that sometimes when you talk to people about climate change, they all feel very, negative about it, because often these amazing creative technologies and also processes, you know, are often invisible to the average person, that all these things are going on. And I just interviewed a guy in Britain the other day who has developed a ship. In this case, it's small right now, it's a catamaran, that uses the wind to generate hydrogen, to create hydrogen from seawater and store it in tanks. And he's just got investment to go to a 1 megawatt ship.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, it's the wind that's powering the boat. It's going through the water. It's got an algorithm that searches out the highest wind speeds. And his plan is for tens of thousands of these ships making hydrogen from seawater. And then either refueling ships at sea or offloading the hydrogen to ports, and then they all go back out again and collect hydrogen. Who knows? But he has a lot of investors very keen on it, and the UK government's even quite interested. So, you know, there's a lot of creativity going on, that's for sure.
Yeah, we see a lot of projects on production of hydrogen worldwide, especially in areas where renewable energies are abundant. You know, a lot of sun or a lot of wind. In Europe, it's Norway, Scotland, and so on, where they have a lot of wind. Also the Baltic and the North Sea areas, and the south of Europe, the north of Africa, they're all gearing up to produce hydrogen at scale. And also an interesting point, there's more and more hydrogen production coming up from surplus of renewable energies, because renewable energy is available when the wind is blowing or the sun is shining, and not necessarily when we need the energy, right? And there's a lot of situations, and the more we gear up the renewable energies, there'll be more and more times when there's a surplus of renewable energy in the system and the grid is full and no one wants to take the energy, but you can convert it into hydrogen and store it for later. So you have something additional that you can actually sell, right? It helps the business case for a wind farm or a solar farm, that they can sell electricity when the electricity prices are good, and then they sell hydrogen at any time, which they produce when the electricity prices are low. So this duality is also seen in the energy system at large, where they kind of complement each other.
Exactly, no, that's a very good point. The storage angle is really, really interesting as well.
We will need to store the sun from the summer for the winter somehow, right? And that's not possible with batteries.
So Jürgen, I just want to say thank you very much for this interview. It's been very, very interesting.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
And I learned something too, and I hope the viewers watching this will learn something as well. And
I'm sure.
I think what you're saying in a sense is there's no, you know, silver bullet to all this. There are, you know, a variety of choices, of which hydrogen will be one of them.
Right.
And that's what we need to decarbonize land transport options.
Yeah. I mean, in our decade-long efforts at BMW for sustainability and you know, environmental friendly technologies, we really learned two things. And one is that we need to employ all available technologies and, you know, employ the technologies that fit best to the use case. And also what we learned is that you have to look at the whole value chain of things. It's not just enough to have, you know, environmentally friendly vehicles, but you have to look at the whole value chain from the beginning of making components, our own production, all the way to, you know, the use phase of the car and also the recycling of the car, which is very important because you have to design the recycling capability into the vehicle and think 20, 30 years in advance, right? And this long-term thinking really has been a part of our DNA, and that's why we develop technologies over many decades and then are ready to employ them or deploy them when the time has come.
Sure, the circular economy.
Right, exactly.
Again, long talked about and hopefully getting there now.
Yeah, but you just have to make it happen.
Yeah, right. You're right, yeah.
I can't stay in my fit. What I'm gonna do if I really want to, but you know, babe.
Yes, okay. All right, so we just saw Jürgen Guldman, who is the head of hydrogen at BMW in a Conversation in Cars show, which we also did last year at New York Climate Week on the streets around the Nest campus. We're now moving to the last live guest of today, and it's Martina Otto, who's head of the Secretariat of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, probably someone that's known to many of you viewers out there, because we've made this whole topic of short-lived climate pollutants, superpollutants, a big deal for us. But for those that haven't, let me just say, as most of our viewers know, carbon dioxide is not the only greenhouse gas. It's about a third of global warming we are now experiencing and coming from other gases, especially for our campaign strategy, methane, but there are many others too. The topic of methane emissions is one of the major focuses, perhaps, of the next climate conference in Brazil, as well as the other super pollutants. And Martina, we're so glad to see you here, so we can talk about that a little bit. And yeah, great to see you.
Fantastic. I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Nick.
Okay. So you're here at New York Climate Week. Is the topic of methane, is the topic of super pollutants actually a topic here? Are people discussing it and talking about it and getting excited?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a topic. Every day we have different events, and it's a good mix between public events and more closed events, where we then go into some of the details of what we can do. We keep saying, well, it's an agenda for people, but also by people. And that means we have to really get everybody engaged and driving the action forward. That's why it's so important getting together on this too. But we had on Monday something around the communications around this topic, because it sounds very geeky if we talk about the super pollutants, methane, and so on, but how do we get the message across in a different way? We had yesterday the Food Day, and we talked quite a bit about the interrelations between methane and actually a One Health approach, also good for animal health. So a very different way of getting to the topic and engaging also farmers. So that was one. And today we looked at fossil fuels, very much so, and how market levers and particularly trade incentives could drive down methane emissions from that sector.
So, and in that sector, particularly from leaks from pipelines and also, yeah, other parts of their economy, the flaring or not flaring of gases and this kind of thing.
Exactly, it's leak preventing, leak preventage, and then flaring and venting.
Yes,
that's the key point.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, do you? I get the sense that there's no countries out there that really have a problem with this. It's just about getting them to elevate their ambition levels further and faster. Nobody's blocking action on the short-lived climate pollutants, but some are, but there needs to be more people elevating it much faster. Is that correct? Or
it's a topic that has been for the most outside of the negotiations, and that obviously takes away some of the tensions and the pressures. It is an agenda where we know we can get immediate benefits, not only the near-term benefits on the climate side, but immediate benefits on air quality with that health. There's a lot of proven technologies that come into play that create new business opportunities as well and jobs. So it makes sense also from an economic perspective. We look at a whole bunch of things that are proven, doable, and cost effective. So that makes it easier as well. That's why it's an easy in a way. And so people are coming together around this topic from different angles. Some sectors are more difficult than others. Some sectors we take them because, for example, waste, we have to deal with waste in any way. So it's not necessarily a methane topic, but it needs to be done anyway. It's a big cost factor for local governments. And if we connect in the methane reductions that we could get from there, they actually could get additional ways of funding some of this. There's multiple facets to it, and that's why it's a beacon of hope in a sense. And we want to make sure that that message comes again to belay. And you mentioned methane in particular, we had a global methane pledge that came out in Glasgow ever since, joined by 159 countries and the European Commission. So it's quite a group of countries. A lot of action has happened since. NDCs, I know 120 countries have put forward their nationally determined contributions with a methane angle to them. Methane roadmaps are coming out and so on. So there's a lot of the scaffolding that is in place.
Yeah.
Yeah, for that. And now it is about making belay the moment that this turns into reductions.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point. I haven't been keeping track of that. But you're saying then what, like 120 countries now having their national climate action plans, their NDCs, some element of the methane action in them.
Yes.
And that's quite the achievement, Martina, for, well, not least for the UNEP Climate and Clean Air Coalition, right? Because
we've been working
very hard on that, right?
We've been working hard on that. We've been supporting countries. We put out a guidance on how to do that and so on. And it's indeed a win. And it doesn't matter. Some countries have put it as economic-wide targets and economy-wide targets, and you get the methane embedded. Others have very specific methane targets. A recent one that came out is the one of Chile, and they have not only one for methane, but also for black carbon and for HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons. So that's going very far. And others have put it into their climate plans that are backing the NDCs. You know, and it doesn't matter in the end how we do it. The moment that there is this leadership and there's a commitment of turning down.
Do you know how many NDCs have been put forward, new revised NDCs?
Now you're putting me on the spot. No,
Yeah,
I can't tell you, but
I think there's some. I mean, the European Union, right? That's a big one. Hopefully that's going to have some reflection of the methane and the other super pollutants in that.
Yeah, and I know that all the Latin American countries are working on a sort of a submission date in the next 3-4 weeks. So there will be a few more coming.
Yeah. So, you know, we were both together in Brasilia when the UNEP Climate and Clean Air Coalition had this meeting, and there were 2 new co-chairs of this initiative, Brazil and the United Kingdom. The US had been there before and very active, but obviously not quite so active as they used to be. But are these 2 co-chairs, you know, really in fact melding? I mean, because their political energy will be quite important in Belém, yes? And if they want action, that's going to help deliver some action, isn't it, in terms of stepping up ambition? Do you get the sense that they're wedded to this as 2 countries?
They're absolutely wedded to this, and we're working towards some key deliverables that we will bring to Belém that really show that will drive action forward. And I think in some of the past shows, for those who have followed us all along, some people are talking about, could we have a binding agreement? And that would obviously be wonderful, but we don't have time to negotiate an agreement. And I was saying, well, part of the thing is, or the good news is, that comes out is that it is a voluntary area where we are not affected by some of the negotiations. And but we always look at the Montreal Protocol as a good example of how action has taken place with a whole support system in place. And we're at the moment mirroring the support system. And that's something we want to take to Belém. So country programs with units embedded in countries. So it's someone's job. And we work on what is called the Technology and Economic Assessment Panel that looks at different technologies and what it takes to get investments into them. And that will act as a multiplier, we think, bringing in some of the private sector folks as well and the financiers. And this is part of the scaffolding that will come out and will provide, hopefully, the necessary underpinning that we act faster.
Does anybody know what is needed economically, globally, financially to make these reductions? Has anybody assessed that? How many millions or billions of dollars it would take?
Well, at the moment, we're working on an economic assessment that will unfortunately only come out next year, but we'll have some data. Yes. Well, it takes some time to do this in a thorough enough way. But the idea is to look at the cost of inaction, the cost of the actions, and we'll have some numbers that we can break down as well, sector by sector and measure by measure as well. But what we will do as well is we will show some of the health arguments as well. So it's really to put more points to why we need to act and convince different actors to go forward.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think we got a little glimpse into how things like black carbon, one of these other super pollutants, which comes from burning and things like that, how much potential damage you might be causing to people's brains, actually, which is everyone's trying to work out why there is so much more apparently Alzheimer's or, Parkinson's or, these kinds of problems in the world. And people are looking around. I mean, here in America, they've decided it's paracetamol. I'm not sure everybody agrees with that. But, it could be something as simple in a sense as all the black carbon that piles in the atmosphere from the burning of fossil fuels and biomass and things like that. Which,
exactly. Burning of biomass. And there's opportunities. Again, why do we burn what could be a resource? And that goes for the fossil fuel sector. If we burn it and not use it, it goes for some of the agricultural residues. And there's different opportunities there to do that. But the science that is coming out, and it is actually quite stark, it talks about particular vulnerabilities. So in the very young, damage to the cognitive development in children. So there we're actually undermining our future and our ability to develop and be creative and so on. And then it's the elderly where we say, yes, there's more, apparently there's a strong correlation with more dementia.
Yes.
And so that's
exactly
touches all of us.
Well, the thing is as well is that science keeps illuminating us with new information, right? And maybe, we didn't know this 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, but now it's coming forward. And then that should give governments the kind of urgency to act because health systems, are a cost to your economy, and people getting sick, is a major economic challenge to everybody's economy.
And we actually have to look to the sides, basically, to take off our blindfolds and look to the sides. So health is one, and particularly with regard to black carbon, but also with regard to methane, which is a precursor to tropospheric ozone. And for too long, we've looked at methane only as a climate element, but it also contributes to health impact seriously, but also it impedes plant growth. And that means impact on food security. It's pretty direct. And if we add that on to the stress that we put on our productive systems with climate change, then I don't know where we end up with our food security. But I don't want to tell a negative story. I want to tell a positive story because we can obviously take those actions. And here as well, there's tons of circularity opportunities.
You can take those actions. And it's pretty clear that we don't need any new technology to deal with these short-lived climate pollutants, these super pollutants. I mean, it's all out there. It's just a question of mobilizing what we've got, isn't it?
Exactly. It's putting the will to it.
So, I mean, one of the things in Brasilia that was absolutely clear, I went to a waste tip, a landfill. I don't know what to describe it was, but it's where a lot of the domestic waste comes from in Brasilia. And the people there, are separating waste, the waste pickers and things like that. And they really want to separate out the organic material so it doesn't go into the waste tip. So it could be taken off for composting, and then we don't get that rotting in the waste tip and all that methane coming into the atmosphere and causing climate change and all these other problems, right? And I got a sense from the Brazilian government that they're quite keen on trying to address this waste issue, because I think in Latin America generally there's a lot of methane coming out of waste tips all over that continent. And so if Brazil acts, others could act too. It could be a regional success,
Absolutely.
Any conversation about that at all? I'd heard there were some people saying there would be conversations about Latin America acting on waste. And
there will be. And actually next week, the Latin American ministers of environment are coming together, and they will discuss an initiative on dump site closure. So that's one. And obviously there's different ways of dealing with
They call them dump sites then, do they?
Well, in that case, it's dump sites. So there's there's different degrees. So there's landfills that are managed, and there are dump sites where you just but if you want to deal with the methane problem appropriately, yes, there's opportunities to capture methane at landfills. but and you close your dump sites. And there's, for example, biocovers that help you reclaim the land. But there's also all the things upstream that you can and need to do, because you don't want to close one facility then to open up another one further down, somewhere else and create another problem. And there's tons of possibilities there. Again, circularity, and that's what they will look at as well, how they can turn residues from the agriculture sector into resource. There is different technologies, and I know, I'm sure you knew I would come with my black soldier flies.
Yes,
but it's a nature-based solution in the end, but how do you use them to turn organic waste into protein, and then you can use it as animal feed. There's a whole effort around composting as well. And that's something that will be discussed as we go to Belay as well, looking at fertilizer use and nutrient efficiency. So it's better using the fertilizers that we do use, but also look at how we can get some of the organics into that. So it's not an either or, but it's using more of that. And here the composting comes in quite interestingly as well, because for a lot of municipalities that do invest in composting facilities, it's then a question of the business model, what to do with this compost. And if we can start creating markets for that and demand for that compost, that would be actually really interesting.
It would be excellent. And we always think this is a developing country problem, but actually it's also a developed country problem, is it not? I mean, we're here in New York City right now, and I've been already talking to people here about they're just starting to bring in some composting projects in the city of New York here in 2025. So assuming this is all the poorer countries not in on the act is crazy, right? Okay, Germany is quite a lot of composting goes on, but
and Germany, because you say it, I mean, this morning we had the discussion and they said, well, what was really effective was a ban on organic waste going into landfills. And that really means you have to segregate waste, but it means as well a lot less volume. And it's much easier to treat the other waste. So there's a whole system around it. And there's tons of possibilities. There's examples of technologies from South Korea, for example. So it's not only that you think, oh, composting, and you have your compost somewhere out there and you need your backyard for it, but there are solutions at very small scale, even for apartments and so on. So you can really break it down at different levels. So the municipal composting facility, but just as well something you do at home or something you connect to the local market.
So we haven't got much time left, but let's just talk about one last thing really, I suppose, which is the whole issue of how trade can work for this question of reducing methane emissions and using methane more wisely than perhaps has been happening in the last few years. So the European Union is seen as a bit of the poster child on this for having made a decision that they will take gas, but only from places where they're actually abating, reducing the emissions of the methane to the atmosphere. Is that crudely put anyway? And so the countries that want to sell to the European Union must, like Canada, say, for example, or others, that they must abide by these trade rules if they're going to be allowed to bring that gas into the EU. Is that something that other countries are now looking at? And could it become not just the EU, but more countries involved? And then we have a kind of market almost for clean methane, if we can put it that way. I don't know how to put it, but
indeed, that is a discussion, and the EU is very clear about using trade not as a barrier into the market. It's not a trade barrier that is being put up, but it's a market incentive. They want to actually make sure that those who do a better job on low methane in the air produce, that gets privileged market access in a sense. And there are other countries out there that look into that. So there's Japan and South Korea. They're looking at that right now. There are discussions with others, but with that already, we look at about 50% of the gas market. So it will be a market lever. And we just discussed this morning how along the lines of a shared responsibility idea, that could be a collaboration between the buyers and those who sell, the ones who use and the ones who produce, and to look into some help on capacity support with the regulations, for example, with regard to enforcement capacity, but also looking at how some of the national oil companies in least developed countries can actually get some help of doing it. And it's very clear that most of what has to do with the industry has to come from within the industry, but there can be help on the regulatory side, for example.
Yeah, because I think Nigeria was also talking about possibly joining this kind of club, and others. So I mean, this really could be the way forward. Although trade is a complex topic right now, as we know, but there are loads of trade incentives all around the world operating. Why can't we have one for methane? It doesn't make any sense not to. Yeah. So I get the sense that you're in a bit of waiting and watching mode at the moment about how things will develop over the next month or so. I think you've been hoping for some kind of summit in Belém of heads of state on super pollutants, short-lived climate pollutants. That's not decided yet, but your fingers are crossed. Is that all?
Our fingers
Daumen
are
drücken, as they say in Deutschland.
Yeah, genau. No, we're really looking forward to a high-level engagement moment at COP. And what we see at the moment with this action agenda that Brazil is driving forward very actively. And it's a little bit like the moment we saw in Paris when there was this whole engagement of the civil society, private sector, and so on, that then led to the Marrakesh process. That is going on as well. It's coming under the heading of Mutirao. So actually working together until the job is done. And I really like that idea. It's collaborative and it's action-oriented and result-oriented. But they have put together a whole list of action agenda items. And there's one, number 25, that's called non-CO2. And it's under that one we work on acceleration plans. So we're not sitting and waiting. But we really mobilize the whole ecosystem of actors towards that. But we're indeed waiting how this engagement moment will look when we go to COP. But we're confident if we work really hard on having good solutions on the table, that we will be able to showcase them there.
And if you combine that with the Global Methane Hub, hopefully showcasing examples of where its investments are starting to turn the tide on methane emissions, then it could be an interesting COP for not only nations and governments, but for journalists and others who are really interested in this topic, because we know that this whole area of these gases is the emergency brake that we can pull right now. And we don't have too many emergency brakes out there right now. In fact, there's probably just that one with about 6 sub brakes underneath. So when you add all the different
with the different sectors, but indeed it is the most cost-effective and most doable thing we can do with a lot of impact.
And if we don't deal with it, of course, that means more methane going into the atmosphere, a superheating gas, and we could lose control of our climate, right? So there's two sides to this coin. There's a fear side and there's the opportunity side. And
exactly. There's a fear side, and the scientists come out with more information on the tipping points and where we are with that. And as our scientific advisory panel chair always says, we're in uncharted territories.
Yes, uncharted.
At the moment, but we really want to talk about the opportunities because there are so many opportunities to act.
We know those, Martina, and you're doing a great job. Congratulations to the UNEP Climate and Clean Air Coalition under your leadership, and we hope that there's going to be a really super outcome of this at Belém, and there is every chance with Brazil and the UK as the co-chairs that something really cool could happen. So fingers crossed.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Nick.
Thank you.